us in the YouTube link that is given to you. We do hope you will have a wonderful time. I can see a lot of our alumni joining us, and I'm sure they will be able to identify our resourceful alumni who will be the resource persons for these sessions today. So as I welcome each of you, I also find the presence of Dr. Sister Christina Bridget, our principal, who's always been our backbone, who has always been our inspiration. She is like Napoleon Bonaparte, in whose dictionary he says there is no word called impossible. So she is one such person who has driven this institution to great heights. And I'm sure all you participants, all you alumni, all you special educators, rehabilitation professionals, you might be well aware that the college has risen to be the top in the NAC accreditation with 3.75. So warm welcome, Dr. Sister Christina Bridget, our principal. I also see our colleagues, Sister Lourdes Mary, our head of the department, all others
Good morning, sir. I think Dr. Himanshu has joined us. Good morning, sir. Welcome.
Participants and resource persons, kindly note our chief guest, Dr. Subodh Kumar, has joined in the name Archana, and the director of NIEPVD, Dr. Himanshu Das, has joined in the name Himanshu. During the presentation, kindly pin on to these names. Thank you.
Warm welcome to Dr. Himanshu Das. You, sir. Kindly mute your audios and videos. We are about to begin. And kindly check for Director NIEPVD, where Dr. Himanshu Das will be rendering his lecture during the inauguration. Our inauguration is quite short. We have a prayer followed by the welcome by Dr. Sister Lourdes Mary, followed by our felicitation by Reverend Sister Principal and Miss Elizabeth David, who is joining us from Kerala, who was here with us for the last 30 odd years. She was a faculty in our department. And then we hand over the session to our chief guest, Dr. Subodh Kumar. And then we have our keynote address by Dr. Himanshu Das. And that would be the first lecture also. So hope you have meal 2 days where we would be virtually able to connect with each other, delve into the topic that is given, topic that we have chosen, a very important one. A little information for the CRE participants. At the end of today, you will be shared a link in the chat box, which will contain your feedback of the sessions, of individual sessions, as well to each of these sessions. And you will have to fill those answers before 9 o'clock today. That will be shared at the end of the day. So thank you very much and hope you'll have a wonderful time. I hand over this session to Ms. Angel Selvaraj and Turin Martina, who will be your compeers today. Thank you. Have a blessed day.
Thank you, Sheila ma'am. It was a nice introduction.
Angel, shall we start?
Yes, ma'am.
Has Dr. Subodh joined?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, then we can start. Yeah.
Prayer is the most important conversation of the day. Take it to God before you take it to anyone else. I request Dr. Turin Martina, Associate Professor, PG and Research Department of Rehabilitation Science, Holy Cross College, to surrender this webinar to the Almighty with her words of prayer.
Let us take a prayerful attitude and commune with the Lord through this prayer. O most gracious Almighty God, we praise and thank you for this new day in our lives. Lord, we thank you for the gift of life and this wonderful opportunity of being a part of National FPP webinar with CRE status by RCI, organized by the PG and Research Department of Rehabilitation Science, Holy Cross College, Tiruchirappalli. Lord, we entrust each one of us into your miraculous presence. Take charge of our thoughts, words, and actions. May all the proceedings of these 2 days be perfectly executed with your eternal wisdom and guidance. We seek your choicest blessings on all of us so that this FDP webinar will reap great benefits to our brethren with disability in specific and the community at large. Let your holy will be done, and at this time of crisis, let us connect with each other for our personal and professional growth, and may we achieve blessed outcomes and proclaim the greater glory of God. We make this prayer in the precious name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, ma'am, for leading us in prayer.
Angel, excuse me. Can
Yes,
you just wait for a second because Dr. Subodh Kumar is yet to join.
okay, ma'am.
Presenter, can we have the video of our department being played then?
Here with us, Dr. Subodh Kumar is in one person.
Sorry about that. There is some connectivity issue for Dr. Subodh. So we'll now move to the felicitations. I request Dharmi to have Sister Principal's felicitation now, followed by Miss Elizabeth's felicitation. Over to Dharmi.
Hi friends, good morning. It gives me a great pleasure, Department of Rehabilitation Science, for organizing this international webinar on the topic challenges and choices of the people with the special needs during COVID-19. We are in the challenging period during this lockdown. We individually meet many problems, physically, psychologically, socially, as well as economically. And you know what will be the condition of people with the special needs? It's still worse. And when today we see how in the hospitals, only people with corona affected are given importance and they are taken care of, whereas the people who suffer from various other diseases are left away, are not given much importance as before, and the conditions of the special people is still worse. Rehabilitation science created a platform so that discussions can go on for 2 days and deliberations can be taken so that these deliberations will enable the society for a better place to live in. Wish you all the best and God bless you.
Thank you, sister, for your words of appreciation. The best teacher teaches from the heart, not from the book. Mrs. Elizabeth David, one of our best teachers who have rendered service for more than 25 years and at present continuing her passion in Kerala, is here with us to render her warm words of felicitation.
Hello. Okay.
Excuse me, ma'am. Ma'am, your audio is muted. Please unmute your audio, ma'am.
Okay.
Can I talk now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Respected chief guest and other dignitaries present here today, a warm good morning to one and all. Excellence is potential chiseled into a more perfect state through vision, dedication, and determination. The achievements of this prestigious institution today are shaped by the strength of the foundations that have been set out by our beloved principal, Dr. Sister Bridget. Sister, we appreciate your commitment to excellence. We are indeed privileged to have an eminent person as our chief guest today. He is Dr. Subodh Kumar, Member Secretary, RCI, New Delhi. He is a man who looks forward to reform the whole special education sector with an innovative teaching technology. He demands quality education, integrity, and utmost dedication in the disability sector. He is dedicated to his task, sincere to the core, simple in life, able to remain calm under pressure, and never yielding to anger. Sir, we appreciate your untiring service to this special population. You made us learn about COVID-19 through courses offered by WHO and granted CRE points to those who are successful. What an idea, Sirji. We appreciate it. Dr. Himanshu, Director NIPVH, Dehradun, is our other guest. Sir, you have earned the trust, admiration, and respect of all rehab professionals with your honesty, sincerity, and hard work. Every individual in this field looks up to you. Thank you for being the one, being the perfect role model, sir. Dr. Sister Maria Kamalam, you have really proved your mettle as a most reliable head. Thanks for uplifting everyone's morale, for pushing the boundaries and lifting everyone through difficult times. You are an irreplaceable asset to our department, sister. Dr. Sister Luth Mary, our head of the Department of Rehabilitation Science, always says, success is never an accident. It is always the result of high intention, sincere effort, intelligent direction, and skillful execution. We appreciate your skill in taking initiative in the right direction, sister. Dr. Sabita Pillai, your level of quality work remains unprecedented in our department. The department was a motivating place to work with because of you. Ms. Jodi, words cannot express your effort and dedication towards work. You have taken our philosophy to a new travel. Continue to inspire and soar higher. Ms. Beulah Sundar, your leadership qualities motivate others to give their best performance. You never shrink your responsibilities and you always maintain the necessary composure for a smooth work. We appreciate that. The creative mind is in a non-stop machine, fueled by intense curiosity. There is no pause. There is no pause button and no way to power it down. Ms. Elsie Bremason, your innovative ways inspired us a lot. Your phenomenal contribution to the welfare of elderly and accomplishments make you unique in every sense of the word. Your ability to accept challenges and overcome them with efficiency and excellence make you legendary. The laurels you have received from the Australian government have made us proud and have made us to walk with our nose up in the air. Ms. Jnana Pumbavai, you are the ideal special educator. You have dedicated, committed,
Okay. Elsa, thank you so much for your felicitation. Can we now move to the welcome address, Angel? Can you ask Sister Lutz?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
A smile is the universal welcome. Here we have Dr. Sister Lourdes Mary, Head, PG and Research Department of Rehabilitation Science, Holy Cross College, to welcome the gathering.
Thank you, Angel. A small cheer and a great welcome instills a good start to any endeavor. A pleasant morning to all. On this occasion of the first FDP International Webinar on Choices and Challenges of Persons with Special Needs, 19, Action and Advocacy, hosted by the PG and Research Department of Rehabilitation Science, I deem it a great privilege to accord a warm welcome to the eminent galaxy of rehabilitation professionals, learned audience, our distinct alumni, and all our well-wishers, parents, and students. At the outset, I am pleased to accord a warm welcome to Dr. Subodh Kumar, Member Secretary, RCI New Delhi, for graciously consenting to preside over the 2 days FDP and delivering the inaugural address. Dr. Subodh Kumar has been a strong pillar of support, steering us to create new benchmarks and sharing his goodwill and expertise to pursue what we plan and execute it with the joint endeavor of RCI. Today, we are really honored to have him as our chief guest to give a befitting start to this event. Welcome you, sir, and we are really thankful to you for ensuring CRE status with 20 valid points for this FDP International webinar. I'm equally happy to unfurl a red carpet welcome to Dr. Himanshu Das, Director, National Institute for the Empowerment of Persons with Visual Disabilities, Dehradun. Sir has been a staunch supporter of all departmental initiatives and has been a friend, philosopher, and guide, strongly supporting every innovative move of the department. It's with an awe of pride I welcome and acknowledge his presence with us to deliver the keynote address. A warm welcome to you, sir. It's gratifying to see so many familiar faces. Yes, certainly overwhelmed by the magnanimous gesture of our distinct and illustrious alumni who have generously accepted to share their knowledge and experience from across the globe. If not for you all, this event would not have been possible. At this juncture, I warmly welcome you all, our coveted resource persons for the 2 days FDP, and I am sure your presentations will undoubtedly be a great source for all our participants. The PG and Research Department of Rehabilitation Science of Holy Cross College, Trichinopalli, has always ventured into new endeavors through the motivation and encouragement from its dynamic heads, namely our Secretary, Reverend Dr. Sister Niranjana Andonisamy, and our inspiring principal, Reverend Dr. Sister Krishna Bridget, and our pioneer and former head, Reverend Dr. Sister Maria Kamala. With a sense of gratitude and pride, I accord a warm welcome to them and our family of the Sisters of the Cross for their support and prayers in every pursuit of the department. It's a glad welcome I extend to all the participants of this 2-day event. It's pleasing to note that you have responded in large numbers across the globe, and I am sure that all your dreams, hopes, and desires will be accomplished through these 2 days deliberations. A hearty welcome to all of you. Teamwork makes dream work. Yes, this dream of ours to tap in the potentials of our illustrious alumni and make it known to a wider world, especially through a resourceful program during this pandemic crisis, has become a reality today, primarily through the committed and enthusiastic efforts of my dedicated faculty. We may be separated miles apart, but the heart and mind to get it done was what kept us going to make it possible today. A special note of welcome to Mrs. Elizabeth David, our former faculty, who has joined us today. I do acknowledge the presence of our rehab students for their participation in this mega event. A hearty welcome to you, my dear teachers and students. Today is the day we join to learn to look through the eyes of others, to find out and gain from their experiences what the world is like for them. This is also the day we grow bigger than our differences and offer to share and reach out to everyone in need and understand that the world would still be a better place in spite of any crisis. Let us all participate in this academic gathering with a quest for inquiry and knowledge sharing. Once again, a warm welcome to one and all. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, sister, for your warm words of welcome. A leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. We have Dr. Subodh Kumar, Member Secretary, Rehabilitation Council of India, to share his expertise with us. Sir, I request you to lead the gathering with your words.
Dr. Subodh is on his way. He has some connectivity issues. He will join us shortly. He actually joined in a different name, but there was some problem with that. And therefore, he's now joining us in another name. So until we wait for him, I would just like to read something which I read about illustrious alumni. The alumni who are representing us are the best fruits from the Department of Rehabilitation Science. They have made valuable contributions to their fields of endeavor, and they have served their communities and their alma mater with their volunteer effort. And they have been very good role models, not just to the place where they work, but even to our juniors here. So we are very honored to have all our illustrious alumni here, flying in rich colors and adding a feather after feather to the rehab cap. So as we await for their lectures later after the inauguration, we still have to wait a few more minutes for Dr. Subodh to join. Thanks for all your patience. Technology sometimes pulls us down, but I'm sure in all the webinars that we've been attending through all these COVID pandemic times, you have experienced similar situations. Nothing like personal face-on conversation. We do face glitches when we depend upon technology. We're very sorry about that, but we'll catch up with the time that we have lost. A little note about the Department of Rehabilitation Science, because we have participants from India. This Department of Rehabilitation Science was started in 1983 by Americans who joined us along with the Bharatidasan University and Sister Elizabeth Rose, who was then the principal of Holy Cross College, along with the Christopher Blinden Mission from Germany. So it was a triangular partnership which saw this beautiful department emerge in 1983 with an undergraduate degree, Bachelor's in Rehabilitation Science, BRSC. In 1987, we introduced the postgraduate course, Masters in Rehabilitation Science, and we were later affiliated and recognized by the Rehabilitation Council of India. And from then on, there was no turning back. The department has grown in strength, and today it has become an umbrella offering various programs under its head. We offer a diploma in special education, mental retardation. We also have need-based short-term training programs. The Department of Rehabilitation Science is also a study center for the Bachelor's in Education, Special Education of the Tamil Nadu Open University. We also have within our campus the Bachelor's in Audiology and Speech Language Pathology. This is a 4-year course. The Department of Rehabilitation Science is also a research department where we offer PhD degrees, which is open to all professionals working in the field of disability. We have more than 46 research scholars whom we guide their PhD. This department has grown in strength, and we are indeed a pride to the entire college. We also have a special school called the Blossoms, Holy Cross Blossoms Opportunity School, which caters to nearly more than 100 little children with special needs. We also serve therapies through our Rainbow Therapy Center, where we have the early intervention program, audiology and speech testing. We have the speech therapy unit, the physiotherapy unit. This department also houses the UGC prestigious program called HEPSIN, Higher Education for Persons with Special Needs, where we offer services for students in higher education. We offer reader service, scribe services. We also prepare talking books and braille books. We also have a toll-free disability number.
Yes.
And we will be starting admissions once this COVID pandemic ends. So those of you who are interested in joining our BRSC, please do look out for the Holy Cross College website, where the applications will be called only online. Admissions will be only through the online mode. The products produced from rehabilitation science are in all corners of the world. Are in all corners of the world. And we have just called a few of them now, those who were available during this time. We hope to have more such faculty development programs with the help of our alumni who are there. So I think we have Dr. Subodh Kumar with us. Can anybody tell us whether he has joined?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Warm welcome to you, sir. May I just know in what name you have joined?
Archana Gupta. My daughter's name, actually.
Okay, okay, Archana. Okay. Participants,
Warm
please
welcome
note.
to you, sir.
Oh, so nice of you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Participants, please note, Dr. Subodh Kumar is here with us in the name of Archana Gupta, his daughter's name. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. Thank you so much for sanctioning the CRE in a jiffy. And we do hope we will not belie your expectations. Thank you very much. And I hand over now the session to Angel to do the honors. Thank you.
A leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. We have Dr. Subodh Kumar, Member Secretary, Rehabilitation Council of India, to share his expertise with us. Sir, I request you to lead the gathering with your words.
So, first of all, good morning to all of you. At the same time, I apologize for the delayed joining due to some internet problem at my home. I'm just right now joining with you, interacting with you from my home. So there was some problem. I'm not very much active with as per my daughter because she has been just helping me. So sorry for the inconvenience caused due to this poor connectivity. And I must actually once again just welcome to all of Krishna Brigade, the principal of the Holy Cross College, Dr. Nagalakshmi. Right now, I'm just seeing since Dr. Himanshu Das, Dr. Elizabeth, I'm just seeing she has been just addressing to all of welcoming to all of us. So this is the honor for me for inviting me on this occasion, and at the same time, I also appreciate the effort taken by the Holy Cross College to organize this international level webinar on the this very important theme, that is the challenges and choices of the persons with disability, special needs during the COVID-19. Theme is very, very much relevant. I don't know. I am very much sure everybody has got a lot of challenges during the COVID-19, and me also, all the educational institutions, everybody. But especially that there is no choice for us. We have the community situation and a requirement of this COVID-19. So the theme is very much important. And once again, I appreciate to all of you. I also welcome to all of you. Dr. Himanshu Das, now he is attending now. Himanshu, welcome, and I'm very happy to see you. And just actually, this is an opportunity given to me to have interaction and being a member secretary RC, and it is also my duty to apply to all the participants about some of the important functions of the council. And everybody is very much aware, but since actually we are having the induction and the speakers, delegates, participants, so it's my duty to also apply to the latest initiative and brief information about the RCA. As we are aware that especially the regulatory body passed by the Parliament, it has been elected in 1992 by the Session of the Parliament. June 1993. So the important mandates the potential of the central we have registered and training college across the country. They're conducting more than 1,500 batches, right from all the courses, certificate to certificate, diploma, and unfilled UG, PG, and unfilled level courses there. So it is all. I think Holy Cross College is one of the oldest university, oldest college, autonomous college recognized by RCA. They have been running this BRSA and MRSA program. It is a unique program they have been running since actually I know this college nice for the last 23 years. I think before enactment of the RCA, they have been running this course. So this is a very good initiative, very good program also. So and at the same time, I will also say actually, at present we are having a strength of 1,50,000 almost CR registered professionals working in digital area, and for catering the needs of the different category of professionals. So at present we are having 16 category of professionals, and most of the important actually the training colleges, they are conducting the programs in specifications. So under the category of the 5, that is the special educators and special education teachers are the one of the important category, and the 80% of the strength of our CRR is the special education. So that is a very good initiatives of the, and it shows the strength of the RC also. At the same time, actually, we also conduct actually, since this is the webinar actually to upgrade the knowledge, and during this COVID-19, we certainly encourage such kind of webinars and actually to upgrade the knowledge of the rehab professionals personnel. So we have given some kind of international accreditations as well as the RCA accreditations of the 10 CRE vetted points for those who have been participating actually for the in this program. So this is all about the RCA brief. Actually, this I will say one more thing. During the COVID-19, we also have been not only we, everybody in that country, entire world have been facing a lot of challenges actually, and of course there is no choice for all of us actually. And actually, since we are working in the digital sector, so we are we are answerable and accountable for the persons with disability. The ultimate goal is to provide a quality service to the persons with disability. And during this COVID-19, actually all the education issues have. I have interacted with one of the university in India, the very oldest of women university in India. So just I asked, how do you manage such kind of persons with disability or special school teaching plan, IEP, etc. So once actually I came to know that they say, sir, actually we are giving a home on program through the webinar also. So I say, just tell me one thing actually, especially for the children with the intellectual disability, ID, and maybe mild or moderate or any kind of category, how could you provide the online training and online services, because actually parents sometimes they do not have the kind of internet connection. Even actually I am sitting actually at my home right now, I'm on leave actually, but I was getting a lot of problem while in the interaction connection. The same thing actually I was asking. So see, the university person says, sir, it is very difficult for me that we are doing the online classes for the children with intellectual disability, but we know the parents are facing a lot of challenges actually while implementing the plan of action, etc. So what I am saying, this is a very important, relevant topic in which you have selected, and we are having the national international participants, and most of them they are working in the railway sector, so they can also share their expertise and experience how they are dealing with the children with disability, and in their country how actually which kind of curriculum or methodology and model is being implemented by them. So that is a very relevant. Actually, we expect that from the speakers, they should also give some focus and highlights about the on these issues, so that our participants in our country, they can also especially we can also know about what is going on. So this is all about actually. I'm talking about the what is the challenges what we are facing. Even the we have during the COVID-19 the offices are closed. Now actually we are functioning with the various cultural staff strength actually, and actually we have been issuing different kind of instructions to all the training colleges department. For the this is the COVID-19 instructions issued by the different Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Ministry of Home Affairs, etc. So to ensure the safety and safety measures of the children with disability and other staff working with them. So these are actually this we are doing, and actually during the COVID-19, I know recently I think Holy Cross College and all the participants, those who are participating, those who are with us right now, they will appreciate the initiative taken by RCA. Actually, we have also implemented, we have also encouraged all the certified rehab professionals to undergo the WHO online course on the COVID-19 to get them acquaintance about the different aspects of the COVID-19, how to ensure sanitization process, how to ensure the safety and preventive measures while working with the disability children with the special needs. So and this program actually online program was linked with the 50 CRE points. CRE means 5 CRE points for each program, and this was initiated by the Department of Social Justice, Department of Employment and Personal Disability. Our secretary, Madam Saguna Dolly Gambling, actually she was very much interested, and she has taken such kind of policy decisions, and that's why actually almost as on date last date was 30th of the June, and we have received almost 70 to 80,000 person those who have done this course. Actually, that is a very great initiative. And at the same time, actually, during this COVID-19, see, there is a lot of space in the mental, amongst all of us. Actually, it was decided by the council. Actually, we should also facilitate and we should also provide some kind of counseling services for mental health through the mental health professionals. So we have displayed the list of the certified mental health professionals on the RCA website, and actually the name of the professionals, their timings, even the timing slots, the language, all these are mentioned on the RCA websites. So that's why actually anybody in parents or anybody those who are having any kind of anxiety, any kind of stress kind of things due to this COVID-19, they can get this benefit from our certified rehab professionals and mental health professionals. One more, during the COVID-19, we are trying to implement the one short program, and that will be launched very shortly by the Rehearsal Council of India, as well as under the Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities. That is the program, is very important program. That is a CBID program, that is Community-Based Literacy Development Program. It is of 6-month durations, and we are going to, if this program has been developed by the RCI on behalf of the DEPWD, and then because it is a collaborative program between the two countries, actually, the Melbourne University, Australia, and the RCI, and the Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities. So we are going to implement this CBID program, and this is the dream project of it. So this will be implemented in shorts actually, and of course the first level of license, those who are working in the community best, they will be also considered as a technical partner for implementation of this program. At the same time, actually, the mental health, the caregiver program is also very much required nowadays, actually. So this program, short-term program, is being developed. It is already developed. Now we are going to implement. Now the modality is that how can we implement, because these are the face-to-face programs. So modality to implement this program through the online mode, actually, this we are going to do, and this is the policy. This is a very tough time for all of us, and we are trying to overcome the situations. Actually, of course, we will overcome. We will this situation very soon. That is our trust actually, and belief actually to the God. At the same time, we also just say right now actually, there is so many webinars and seminars. Webinars are being organized by the different organizations and the training institutions and necessary institutes, other government organizations. on the COVID-19 actually, especially in terms of the levels of this challenges and choice challenges faced by all of us, not only this persons with disability or persons with special needs. It is also challenge faced by all of us. So this is a very important and very important webinar for all of us. So I just request all the participants, all the stakeholders, those who are with us today. Actually, they have spared their time. So just be attentive and try to gather some kind of the relevant informations and try to email these things actually while working in your setup, and that is a very useful for all of us actually. At the same time, I have taken so many delayed. So due to my personal problem, this internet problem, so I try to just cut out my address. At the same time, I also once again thank to all of you, especially the Holy Cross College, Dr. Elizabeth, Dr. Krishna Brigade, Magalakshmi Madam, and of course Himanshu Das is there actually, and other stakeholders actually they are not able to see, but actually national and national level speakers. So once again, thanks to all of you, and we expect that if we do this seminar, actually we will have some very good relevant outcomes actually, and that will be helpful for all of us. Once again, thank you very much. On behalf of RCA, I say thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you very much
for your presence and words of guidance and information. A good coach can change a game. A great coach can change a life. Dr. Himanshu Das, Director, National Institute for the Empowerment of Persons with Visual Disabilities, is one such person involved in bringing positive changes in the lives of differently abled. Sir, I request you to enlighten us with your words of wisdom.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Dr. Subodh Kumarji, Member Secretary RCI. Namaskar, sir. You have been a brother mentor to me. Thank you so much for coming to this webinar, sir. Challenges and choices for persons with special need during COVID action and advocacy. The program conceived by the Department of Rehabilitation Science, Holy Cross College, is indeed a very special move in this bad time of COVID. I hope I'll have to be slightly fast in order to finish my presentation. Anyway, I congratulate the whole of the Holy Family community, and it has been a great journey for me to be part of your community like a family member for a very long time. Thank you for remembering me for this August gathering and this August program. Now, the Department of Persons with Disabilities and the National Institutes in particular, and our composite regional centers across the country had been working almost round the clock for last 3 months during this time of COVID. Realizing that it is the biggest hurdle, one of the severest hurdle that mankind has seen in many decades now. Realizing the challenges that all our professionals are facing, and professionals while working with the parents and the families have realized that the parents and the families are also under extreme challenges in dealing with this COVID time. My experience, whatever I'm going to share with you, is basically not my own experience, but the experience of the whole community of the National Institutes and the professionals, those who have been serving through online or whatever possible modes for last 3 months. Talking about the specific challenges, few additional challenges that has come up during this COVID time, which are different from the usual challenge that we see in any other individuals. First thing that we have come across is the emotional disorders that we are facing now in our population. Second is many of the children are getting into behavior disorders. Mental health issues, not only in the persons and the children, but also in the families, had been noted very prominently. Job loss, many persons with disabilities are sort of complaining about job losses, and many families are also talking about the economic hardship and the economic losses that they have to suffer. Many institutions, professionals, and parents are talking about the skill maintenance, whatever skills they had learned because of this 3-4 months of no proper intervention. Many of the skills that they have learned has been lost. So over years of training, and just for 4 or 5 months of non-activation and non-polishing of the skills, many of the skills got lost. Similarly, skill acquisition, whatever format of learning you talk of, speech therapy, you talk of special education, you talk of education, you talk of activities of daily living, whatever format of learning you talk of skill acquisition. Many are facing challenges in acquiring new skills in this time of specific adaptation that we need to make. Then many are facing extreme challenges with regard to adaptation to the new normal and a new routine that we are emphasizing people to come across. Then next is how to transform the home to the school. Earlier, most of the parents were dependent, especially when it comes to special needs children. Many parents were dependent on the school and the school system, or the rehabilitation clinic, or the service system that we have, different service delivery models. But now that these models are not working or working in a different format, we all know the home has to be now transformed to a school. That is another challenge. Many of the people are not really aware how to transform the home to the school. The new role of parents and the families. We had an entirely different kind of a role of parents, the mother, the father, the siblings, when the system was on. Now with this system taking a different turn, or the old system, we see that it's collapsing. Under such circumstances, the new role of parents and the family is becoming very, very important. Then learning and accepting the transdisciplinary approach. Although we have been talking for a long time, I think last 5 decades we have been talking about multidisciplinary approach, that every disability would need a comprehensive service given by many different professionals. But nobody actually was practicing the transdisciplinary approach, which actually is the need of the hour for persons with special need across the country. So we wanted single point services where the single point would be able to deliver the comprehensive multidisability services, multidisciplinary services that is required for persons with special need. So focusing on the transdisciplinary approach has become a challenge now, because we are not prepared or not experienced with the transdisciplinary approach. Then further, we have been talking of ICT for a long time, but online system of learning itself has become a challenge in whatever form, whether because of hardware, because of software, because of training, because of internet facilities, because of financial issues, whatever way you define, the online system of learning has also become a challenge for many. Lastly, if you see the health challenges of persons with special need could not be really addressed much. I know many people with thalassemia who want to do every month, and with this lockdown, we would not even give them blood. Now imagine a situation where a thalassemic patient is waiting in the hospital to get blood, and we are not able to provide them blood. Then we had a lot of challenges because of this emotional disorder, behavior disorders, and mental health issues in the family and in the child. We have seen people getting into epilepsy. We have a lot of cases of severe epilepsy now. We have relapse of epilepsy, and a lot of other psychiatric and psychological issues has come up in the family. Many students, many children have developed a lot of psychosocial issues, and also psychosomatic disorders. Mental health activities, mental health downfall has led to a lot of psychosomatic disorders in the children. Now, coming to the steps that we had been trying to take, and the NGO community had been trying to take, by and large, if we nationally try to summarize, it's the online classes that everybody is trying to do in many towns and also district level. But when we talk about the grassroots level, these online classes are definitely not reaching much. And secondly, these online classes are actually reaching most of the time RCI registered professionals or rehabilitation practitioners. We are not giving the direct online services to persons with special need or their parents much. This is one area. Second area is the consultation services, online consultation services, that the door we have opened in all the national institutes, all the composite regional centers, and partnership with many of the NGOs. This consultations, online consultation of multidisciplinary services is open, but takers are not much, because many of the families are into the opinion that many of these rehabilitation services, physiotherapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, clinical psychology, special education, are something which cannot be offered online. Because of this myth, we are not able to approach much. But however, with innovation, with last 3 months of experience, our faculties, our experienced professionals have found out new ways, novel methods to intrude into lives of persons with special needs and also the families by trying to give different multidisciplinary services. The question is it enough? Whatever we're trying to do is not enough. We need to do much more, knowing that the COVID is not going to leave us soon. So knowing this, we need to develop plans and proceed towards understanding the concept of home lab. How do you transform the home into a laboratory for special education and therapeutic learning programs is one area which all of us need to focus on. Second is detailed focusing, detailed planning of all the NGOs and the government is required with regard to capacity building of the families. Third thing that we need to focus on, the capacity building of the rehab practitioners. While I'm dealing with a lot of rehabilitation practitioners and the special education community, I have realized we have all had a very good pre-service training program under RCI. We're now having a very good post-service training program under the head CRE. However, most of these programs had never actually equipped us to offer online services. So how do you build the capacity of the rehab professionals to offer online services? Third thing, most of the time, although we keep talking about ICT and revolution, digital revolution, when you really now, at this bad time of COVID, when you really now want to go and explore, then you find the e-resources are not there for different categories of disability, different severities of disability, different disciplines that are required to be offering e-learning resources, and also class-wise, grade-wise adaptive e-learning modules that you require is missing. So that is one area which all of us need to focus on, because I understand whether COVID will remain or not, that is another issue, but e-learning and ICT must be focused, and this COVID-19 should be taken up as a learning all conducting webinars, seminars, a lot of online programs. But when I did a survey of different states, I realized that in many of the states, the question of ICT availability and accessibility is a very big issue. Sometimes you do not have hardware, sometimes you do not have software, sometimes you do not have internet services, sometimes you have everything, but the person may not be having enough money to be affording for an internet service for 4, 5, 6 hours a day with 4G facility or whatever way you say. Now, the last thing, all the parents, special educators in many of the places are into offering some kind of services, but when I see that service has not been standardized or had not been properly recorded, because when I am demanding online assessment, online goal setting and online evaluation, that is where parents and the professionals and the special schools are not giving us the right information. Though we are having some kind of a services of psychology, special education, occupational therapy going on, and parents are also testing whatever they can, but this needs to be formalized in terms of assessment, goal setting and evaluation. Now the new job identification. Now we all know that the world will come up to a new kind of a professional and economic structure. Under such structure, how all of us get together, converse together in understanding the new job identification for persons with special needs. Accordingly, we will have to work out a new skill training for persons with special needs. And further, how do you actually now, with realizing the challenges that we have in COVID, how do you actually focus on home-based or home-bound kind of skilling programs and economic rehab programs for persons with special needs? These are the new challenges that I am talking about, and the focus that we can achieve with proper convergence with associations of organizations like UNAP. Then the focus on transdisciplinary approach must be enhanced now, and also learning all teachers, although the universal design of learning concept had been in place for last almost 10 years, we had been talking about it in many of the seminars and webinars, but in practice we had not been able to do much because our focus itself on the UDL was much, much lower than it should have been. Encompassing 21 disability, different type of disability, different severity of disability, and different other formats of diversity that you see in the children, it is high time that we start understanding the universal design of learning well and practicing it well in whatever way possible, whether it is online, distance mode, face-to-face mode, clinical services. It is high time that we encourage the universal design for learning program and re-educate all the strategies of online and distance learning program. All our teachers, special educators, and stakeholders need to understand the new strategies those will be responsible for online and distance learning programs. I realized the difference between regular teaching and online teaching when I started working at Indira Gandhi National Open University. There, during our training, I realized it's entirely a different gamut of training when you talk about online and distance learning programs, becoming a teacher for online and distance learning programs. So our teacher would also need some kind of special re-education or special training to take up this movement of online and distance learning. Lastly, not to talk much on the advocacy part, because I see advocacy part for this COVID time has been very, very poor or very low. And being a government person, I cannot really talk much on that. However, I would urge all parents and associations and organizations to come up with advocacy programs, especially in relation to COVID and online and ICT programs that would be required across the country to offer services. Just on a note, this advice I am giving to everyone, so I'm not leaving you all also. After studying a lot of online resources on COVID management, I have realized persons with special needs would have problems in immunity. They will have a compromised immunity in most of the cases. So zinc, vitamin C, yoga and exercise is something which you cannot miss out. So everyone needs to be made aware that food with zinc, vitamin C and yoga and exercise must be made part of this new life or post-COVID life that we're talking about. So be positive, be giving in nature, work on empathy development amongst yourself and also amongst the community that you are working with. Parent support group must be developed as much as possible now, and also parent and professional support group needs to be developed at all forums to fight this challenge of COVID. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Anything else that I can do for you, I'll always be there for you. Thank you so much, the Holy Family community, for inviting me for this program. I hope I have not taken much time, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much, sir. It was a nice address.
Thank you, sir, for your thought-provoking words. As Elsa ma'am was not able to continue due to technical issues, I once again call Mrs. Elizabeth David to give her words of felicitation to us.
I'll continue my felicitation with the resource persons. Dr. Sabita Pillai, your level of quality work remains unprecedented in our department. The department was a motivating place to work with because of you, Sabita. Ms. Jodi, words cannot express your effort and dedication towards work. You have taken our work philosophy to a new level. Continue to inspire and soar higher. Ms. Beulah Sundar, your leadership qualities motivate others to give their best performance. You never shirk your responsibilities and you always maintain the necessary composure for a smooth work environment. We appreciate that, Beulah. The creative mind is a non-stop machine fueled by intense curiosity. There is no pause button and no way to power it down. Mrs. Elsie Bremason, your innovative ways inspired us a lot. Your phenomenal contribution to the welfare of elderly and accomplishments made you unique in every sense of the word. Your ability to accept challenges and overcome them with efficiency and excellence makes you legendary. The laurels you have received from the Australian government have made us proud and have made us to walk with our nose up in the air. Congratulations, Elsie. Ms. Jnana Pumbavai, you are the ideal special educator. You are dedicated, committed, hardworking, and above all, helpful. Thank you for being who you are. Self-bliss, self-belief is key, and you have proved it too. Dr. Frigitta Johnson, words cannot express your efforts and dedication towards work. You have taken our work philosophy to a new level. Continue to inspire and soar higher. Dr. Viviani Rajan, you have taken brilliance to a whole new level. Congratulations. When you combine hard work with innovation, you arrive someplace special. Enjoy every bit of your success. You deserve it. Ms. Rebecca Ranjani, the difference between a successful person and others is not a lack of strength, not a lack of knowledge, but the strength of your achievement is rooted in the depth of your passion to serve the special population. Continue to be successful in your endeavors. Dr. Nageshwari, we like the way how you explore authentic learning opportunities, allowing for student-designed assessment and embracing technology. Continue your exploration. This unimaginable and unprecedented scenario has brought out the best in all of us. While the loss of a physical classroom environment is disheartening, the work you are doing matters and will be remembered. I hope that this international webinar will yield fruitful discussions and also ensure that this will give an excellent opportunity for persons to exchange their ideas on various issues faced by persons with disabilities all over the world and ways to overcome them during this COVID-19 pandemic. In keeping pace with changing times, Rehab Department has been expanding horizontally and vertically. It has been a constant endeavor of Holy Cross College to keep itself abreast with the latest trends and fields, thereby imparting quality, high standard education with an effort to create quality and responsible human resource which can face the challenges of the ever-changing global scenario and thus propel and fuel the growth of the nation. I express my sincere appreciation for the untiring efforts put by faculty of the Department of Rehabilitation Science in accomplishing the set goal. Rehabians, your active cooperation and dedicated support is solicited for the success of this event with your wholehearted involvement by way of your personal virtual presence. You are the light of the world. A town built on hill cannot be hidden. Continue shining and let the world rejoice with the hope at your shining light. Thank you all again.
Thank you, ma'am. Your words are always refreshing and motivating. A grateful heart is a magnet of miracles. I call upon Dr. Sheila Christopher, Associate Professor, PG and Research Department of Rehabilitation Science, to deliver the vote of thanks.
I take this opportunity to thank all those who have made this day possible, especially the inaugural session. At the outset, I wish to place my sincere thanks and gratitude to God Almighty, who's been with us throughout all these touching moments. I place on record my thanks to Dr. Subodh Kumar and Dr. Himanshu Das, our chief guests, who presented the inaugural address and the keynote address. We know how busy they are. We know what kind of responsible positions they hold, but still they are here with us this morning to share their views and thoughts, their expertise, and their thanks to Dr. Himanshu Das. Our source of support. Her sincere prayers are here with us. Thank you, sister. No program goes without the involvement and ideas of Dr. Sister Christina Bridget, our principal. In Tamil, there is a proverb, Thunilum irupar, Turumbilum irupar, which goes well with Dr. Sister Christina Bridget, our principal. She is here, there, and everywhere. And we are honored to have her here with us this morning. And thank you, sister, for your kind words of felicitation. Miss Elizabeth Joseph. Nobody in the Department of Rehabilitation Science will not know her. A woman who trod the portals of the department with such ease and comfort that she could easily strike a balance with anyone. We are very happy, Elsa, that you are here. And she has been my very close friend, my ready reckoner, and in fact, my alter ego also. So thank you, Elsa, for your kind words. The Department of Rehabilitation Science is able to achieve much because of the steering leadership of Dr. Sister Lourdes. Thank you so much, sister, for your support, for your kind words, for your encouragement, and for all things that you do there behind the screen and before the screen. Thank you, sister. I place my sincere thanks to all my colleagues, the 11 of us, who work as a team, just like ants scurrying, which we have been doing for the past 30 odd years. And we continue to do that with such passion. So thank you so much for that sincere efforts that we have put in. I have to appreciate our own selves for the sincere efforts that we have put in. And we hope to see beautiful, concrete suggestions emerging out of this FDP. I also place my sincere thanks to all the alumni, particularly the resource persons who have accepted our invitation from across the globe to be here with us. As we do understand, they are in different time zones. Some of them have sacrificed their sleep. Some of them have sacrificed their work today, but yet they are here with that one passion to meet on one platform, the Rehab Family platform. So thank you for being here. Thank you. To all the participants, Pan-India, who have joined us. I can see a lot of North Indians here, people from Kerala, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, our own alumni here. Some of them with the interest to know what transpires during the course of this FDP. Some of them to have a glimpse of their classmates who are resource persons, and some of them to have a glimpse of their elder sisters who have passed out of rehab. So to all of you who have gathered here in the Google Meet platform, as well as in the YouTube platform, warm welcome and a big thanks to all of you. This webinar would not have been a success or will not be a success, but for sincere efforts of Dr. Juliet Catherine and Ms. Dharmi, who have been our technical assistants. In fact, they are the brain behind all the technical things that are going on. I rest assure you, the technical glitches are not because of them, but the smooth functioning of this webinar is all because of their sleepless nights and sincere efforts. So thank you so much, Juliet. Thank you so much, Dharmi. This FDP would not be possible but for more than 20 days of sleepless nights that all of us had, and many moments of sincere planning, and the previews that we had, the preview meetings, thanks to technology, thanks to COVID for that, for teaching us so many things. So once again, I welcome all of you, thank all of you for being here, and I hope you will have a wonderful 2 days fruitful FDP session with us. Thank you once again. Over to Angel. We will not have any break in between now. We will immediately move to the second lecture. I hand over the session now to Turin, who will lead us through the second session.
Turin, your permission, can I take a few moments to tell about the regulations?
Yes, Crescenta.
Can I take a few minutes to tell about the rules and instructions to the participants?
Yes, Crescenta. Yes, very much.
Beulah, kindly excuse me. Dear participants, we find many of you unmuting your video and audio. So for the benefit of all, kindly switch off video and audio at all times because we are able to see and hear what is happening in your homes. Kindly mute
Tell
your
in Tamil also, ma'am. Tamil.
Crescenta, sister wants you to tell in Tamil also.
பங்கேற்பாளர்கள் அனைவரும் உங்களோட ஆடியோவையும் வீடியோவையும் தயவு செஞ்சு ஆஃப் பண்ணிருங்க. ஏன்னா உங்க வீட்லயும் நீங்க இருக்கிற இடத்துலயும் நடக்கிறது எல்லாமே நிறைய பேரால பார்க்க முடியுது.
And some are lying down. Ma'am, some are in the bed. So hard to see.
தயவு செஞ்சு ஆஃப் பண்ணிருங்க. Kindly mute your audio and video. If you have, as and when the session starts, if you have any questions, you can post it in the chat box. The entire webinar will be in English. For the CRE participants, attend all the sessions. CRE participants, if found offline, kindly note your registration stands cancelled because you have to keenly listen to all the sessions. At the end of day 1 and day 2, we will send you a feedback and assessment form which you will have to answer. So only when you attempt to answer the feedback and assessment form will you get your certificates. So, and another information, you need to get minimum of 60% marks. So please keenly listen to the lectures, invited lectures, because based on the lectures, the questions are formulated. So you need to get 60%. So pay attention to the lectures. The feedback and assessment form will be active from 9 to 5 p.m. on day 1 and day 2, with 2 different assessment forms for each day. So during the question answer session, because all invited lectures will be for 45 minutes and 15 minutes is allotted for the question and answer session. So it is only during the question and answer session can you unmute your audio and raise the question. If you feel insecure using the audio to question, you can post it in the chat box. So when you question, make sure your surroundings are noise free. And few minutes from now up to valedictory, you might be asked to unmute your video because we'll have a photo session. So please be online and listen. So when you present yourself for the photo session, kindly be presentable. Thank you. Yes, Turin, you can take up.
Yes, Crescenta. The first session of today's International FTP webinar is by Dr. Beulah Sundarajan. The moderator is Dr. P. Swarnakumari, Associate Professor of the PG and Research Department of Rehabilitation Science. Participants, kindly pin on the name Dr. P. Swarnakumari. Over to Dr. Swarna.
Thank you, Turin. A pleasant morning to our special speaker of the day, Beulah Sundarajan, and the galaxy of participants joining in through Google Meet and YouTube. It fills me with a great sense of pride and pleasure to welcome and introduce the resource person of the first invited lecture of the webinar, my junior schoolmate, my distinct student, my one-time colleague, and now my intellectual associate, Mrs. Beulah Sundarajan is a socio-emotional coach and student council staff advisor at Lakeshore Middle School, New Berlin, Wisconsin, USA. As an illustrious seminar, Mrs. Beulah has a versatile academic profile with a triple master's degree in the subjects of rehabilitation science, psychology, and school counseling. She has a rich work experience in teaching and has a full-fledged history of handling individual and group counseling sessions with children and adults across various age groups. Mrs. Sundarajan has presented training sessions and sectionals at district and state level schools in the USA and had won wide recognition. It is certainly befitting to have her amidst us to enlighten us on the topic invisible trauma in children with special needs during COVID-19. I am sure her experiential sharing would not only help us understand the hidden problems arising out of the pandemic crisis, but also gain knowledge of the measures to alleviate and remediate its impact on the lives of these specially challenged individuals. I accord a warm welcome to you, dear Beulah, and also to all our participants who are connected virtually, and fondly request you to take over the session. Beulah, now you can just take over your session.
Thank you, Swadna. Guys, I'm going to mute my video so that you guys can hear well. I'm going to start presenting now. Please help me if you can see the screen clearly. Good morning, everyone. It is my honor to present the international webinar and be a part of this great rehabilitation team. Swarna did a great introduction of myself. I'm Mrs. Sundarajan, school counselor and social emotional coach, and I also teach AVID elective for middle school in Wisconsin, USA. Even though I wear many hats, the big role is working with parents and students, which is a major part of counseling and helping families. We have about an hour, and I'm hoping that to make this a productive and engaging for everyone. Few housekeeping before we start the session. Please take notes during the presentation, write down your questions, and at the end of our session, you will have an opportunity to discuss and ask questions. I'm going to tip you off, guys. During the session, my slides has highlighted words. So those are the questions that will be an assessment. So make sure that you pay keen attention, taking down notes and listening carefully, especially to the highlighted areas. So the topic for today is trauma. The reason I chose trauma is because of COVID-19. COVID-19 itself is a traumatic event for all of us. So before we dive into what COVID-19 looks for us and for children with special needs, we need to understand what trauma is. So what I have here on the slide 1 is an operating definition of trauma. Trauma says is an individual trauma results from event, a series of events, or a set of circumstances experienced by an individual as physically or emotionally harmful or life-threatening with lasting adverse effects on individuals' functioning, mental, physical, social, emotional, or spiritual well-being. As you look at the words that's been highlighted with certain colors, those are the key words. So COVID-19 itself is a traumatic event. It can be a single event or a series of events or a set of circumstances experienced by an individual. So if you take COVID-19 itself, it presents as a different traumatic experience for all of us. The trauma that you experience can be very different for another person. So you have to understand COVID-19, how it presents itself as a trauma for children with special needs, the families, and us, educators, as we work with children and families. So trauma is classified as 2 types. One is the primary trauma, which is a direct trauma, and the next one is a secondary trauma. So today we're going to focus on secondary trauma because we know a lot of information about primary trauma. Primary trauma is classified into 3 different sections, which is acute, complex, and historical. Acute is a response to one-time event. It can be a job loss or illness in the family, Complex is exposure to multiple traumatic events. So they have a job loss because of COVID-19, and they also have an illness in the family, might be a divorce, a home change. So it can be a complex of events. The next primary type is historical. It's a constellation of characteristics associated with massive cumulative group of trauma across generations, which means the family has history of trauma. The family had divorce or illness for generations, and they're trying to deal with COVID-19 on top of it. So this are the types of primary trauma. Primary trauma is very visible. You know the factors, you know the timeline, you know the extent of the trauma, you have all of the information about the trauma for a primary, from primary type. But when you look at the secondary type of trauma, this is a little tricky because you can see secondary trauma. It's an indirect exposure to trauma through a first-hand account or a narrative of a traumatic event. It is also referred as a compassion fatigue. So I'm going to give you an example what a secondary trauma looks like. So if a student comes to the class or shares information about somebody who is ill or has COVID-19, then that information is shared with other students who also starts to experience trauma. They think about the event, they kind of like place themselves in that situation, and they get exposed to trauma. It's the same with educators too. We share a lot of information about COVID-19 among our co-workers, among the people we work. We share stories, we share family stories, we share incidents that's happening. So we are passing on the trauma to another person through indirect exposure. This is secondary trauma. The term that's used is vicarious traumatization is when you start experiencing by putting yourself in the other person's shoes. So you start imagining what's going through the other individual by listening to them or hearing about trauma or COVID-19 that's happening in their lives. So secondary trauma is just the byproduct of a primary trauma. So secondary trauma impacts and sources. It impacts everyone. It impacts our students, it impacts educators and caregivers. So if you look at the sources, it can come through different sources. It can come through family, when you have conversations in your family. It can come through caregivers. They share stories among the caregivers, and it comes through media. Media is a huge impact right now for COVID-19. Even the ringtone, when you call someone, what do you hear? You hear a COVID cough or COVID symptoms or an alert message that sets the trauma level way up because that's been discussed every day through media. So what we have here is the iceberg situation that we call it. What we see on the top of the iceberg is COVID-19 deaths or the cases, the information that we see and hear every day over the news, over the media. But when the child comes to you for support services, there's so many things that's underneath that we don't have the information. That can be unemployment, anxiety, anger, depression, addictions, domestic violence, child abuse, and suicide. There are tons of information we don't yet know for that particular child because what we see is a top of the iceberg. So the second slide, the parallel slide that talks about the teens and social distancing because of COVID-19. So what parents may be seeing and hearing is what's very visible out there, excessive screen time. Kids have been using the media or playing games, defiance, disrespect, swearing, ignoring, complaining, sneaking, refusing, fighting, and leaving. So this is what we see. These are the symptoms that people see or parents see among the teens. But what the teens are actually experiencing is below the iceberg, where you have boredom, helplessness, lack of skills, disconnection, emotionally dysregulated, fear, worry, confusion, powerlessness, misunderstanding, and they worry about the social status. So please keep in mind what we see with our students when they come to us for support service, it's only the tip of the iceberg. There is so many things that's going on that happens which has a lot of information that we need to find out either by having those conversations or helping with support services. So our next slide talks about having safe and empathetic conversations. When we work with our children, these are the things I want you guys to keep in mind. Listen attentively and with empathy. There's a big difference between showing empathy and sympathy. So if you Google up the difference between empathy and sympathy, there's a lot of references on both those topics. Sympathy is just being sorry for what's been happening to them. Empathy is really you're stepping into that role and providing that support services the children need. So that's the foremost important thing that we need to do when working with children, listening attentively and with empathy. The next one is avoid being dismissive. A lot of time we hear adults say to children, oh, that's not a big deal. You can get over it. It's not a big thing for you to worry about. So when you start being dismissive, they lose that trust in you. And the next one is asking questions. So I talked about the iceberg situation. The more you ask questions about what's going on, either in the family or family situations, the more you get to know the child. So asking questions to get more information. Giving them space and time. So a child may not be able to say what's going on, or first time you ask a question, giving them enough space or even time for them to process the information, build that trust, build that relationship with the child, and then have those conversations. Next big one is validating the feelings. Even if it's a tiny feeling, the child feels so important when you start validating your feelings. The last one is providing support and resources. This is something that we do every day, making sure that we provide support and resources for our children, especially when in terms of COVID-19, like where they can get media support, where they can get laptops, internet use, where they can get free meal programs, support from the family, if they need therapy outside, if they need counseling services. How are we streamlining these services for the children? So providing that support and services is a huge task for every educator and caregiver when it comes to COVID-19. So we're going to move on to the secondary trauma in children, talking about some of the symptoms. We are looking at short-term symptoms here. The first one is attachment issues. It can be a healthy or an unhealthy attachment. So if you notice the child having attachment issues or is increasing because of COVID-19, that's a short-term effect of trauma. The next one is attention regulation. The child is finding difficulty to regulate, losing focus, becoming very impulsive. So again, we are working with children with special needs. You know your child, you know your caseload, what's going on. So if you notice some differences in the degree of what's going on, the attention or the focus becoming even more severe, then we need to find out what's happening in the family, what's happening with the child, how he or she is processing information about COVID-19, and helping them to regulate those emotions. Next is the affective regulation, which is the mood and emotions of the child. Again, it also affects them because of COVID. The social adjustment is a huge piece. The child loses trust between friends, social relationships, or what's happening in the social world. So they do have some difficulty in the social adjustment. The next one is self-concept. Either they get into a poor self-concept or low self-concept, and they struggle with maintaining that self-concept. So these are the short-term effects of trauma in children. Moving on to long-term effects, children do suffer from mental and behavioral health impairments, physical impairments, school failure, and unemployment issues. So this can be a cluster of symptoms happening to the child, or either one symptom that's growing increasingly severe because of COVID-19 trauma that's happening to them or to their family members. So we talked about trauma, we talked about the types of trauma, we kind of focused on secondary trauma, which is very invisible of what's going on. We talked about the symptoms. Now we're going to move on to the management of those children. So here at our school district, we kind of focus on three main things when it comes to trauma, helping kids with special needs. The first one is emotional regulation, regulating the emotions of children. The second one is social thinking. And the last one is skills training. A big program that we use for emotional regulation, and this can be used at any age levels, right from age 4 till young adults. It's called the zones of regulations. So I've added some resources at the end of our presentation. And if you Google up zones of regulations, you can see a lot of information that's been shared for curriculum and things that you can just take and use. So I can talk to you at the end of the session about the resources that you can have readily available. So that's for emotional regulation, the zones of regulation. The next one is social thinking. Social thinking is helping the child to understand or take perspective of what's happening because of COVID-19. The way they think becomes very fixed. It's hard for them to have that flexible thinking of what's happening in the world because of COVID-19. So helping them to think flexibly and helping them to use some strategies to gain new perspectives of COVID-19 is a struggle for children with special needs. The next one is the skills training. We do use a model called CPS, which is called the Collaborative Proactive Solutions. And it's a source from Lives in Balance. So as I'm going through the slides, I will explain to you about each thing that we can use for management in children. So the first thing that we're going to learn today is emotional regulation. As I talk to you, the program that we use here in the United States is called the Zones of Regulation. It talks about 4 zones to describe the levels of alertness and feelings. So any child, it can be with any specific need, has to learn or identify 4 zones. So we have with the blue zone, the green zone, the yellow zone, and the red zone. Ideally, we want the children to be in the green zone. That's a learning zone. The zone that helps the children and the adults to kind of like, to understand they are in control, they are calm, happy, and ready to learn. So any services you provide, whether it's going to be a reading service or a support service, the children have to be in the green zone to receive those services, understand those services, and learn what you're teaching them. So if the child struggles to be in the green zone, then it's going to be in either of the other zones. So the blue zone is being sad or sick or tired or bored. The yellow zone is more intense emotions, kind of like feeling silly, frustrated, excited, scared. It can be a one-time event, or they can hop from one zone to the other, being in the silly zone. The red zone is something that you have to be very aware of. It's out of control, very elated, angry, wild, and terrified. So this is where you need most of the services to help children to either come to the yellow zone and eventually move on to the green zone. So if you look at the zones of regulation curriculum, it helps to teach children how to identify the zone, which zone they are, and move themselves between the blue, yellow, and red zone to the green zone to be in control, calm, and happy, and ready to learn. So what we do here, we teach the children the zones of regulation. There's a lot of lessons that goes with that. And we help them to identify tools they need or strategies they need for each zone. So when you look at the blue zone right here, it says either they are sad, sick, tired, or hungry. So what are some of the strategies that they can use in the blue zone to help themselves? Would be to have a time break, or have a snack, take a nap. So you're going to list all the strategies in the blue zone that's going to help the child to manage the blue zone and move on to the green zone when they are ready. Do not push the child to move to the green zone in your terms. They have to do it in their terms. So our job is to first to help the child to identify which zone they are
and then come up with strategies that's going to manage that zone level. Then we're moving on to the green zone. Green zone is kind of like the zone that it's ready to learn. They know what they're doing. They are receiving the services. They're able to understand the services. They're calm and happy processing information. So that's where we want the children to be. Yellow zone is kind of the zilly, goofy, frustrated, either they're too excited, something is happening, or they saw a funny movie, they can't stop sharing that in the classroom. You give them choices, you give them options to process that information and help them to manage that silly zone and move on to the green zone. The next one is the red zone, where we need to do a lot of work here. Here, the children are highly elated, angry, and they are in the zone where they have emotional outburst. So this is also kind of like having the child in the safe zone. So providing a safe corner, a calm down corner, we're helping the child to manage those emotions, giving them some tools and strategies to calm themselves down, and then helping them to move from the red zone to the green zone. So this is what we do for our children. Help them to identify which zone they are and help them to move from the other 3 zones to the green zone. So when the child is telling you which zone they are, no zones are bad zones. So when they're talking about the red zones, we don't want the child to feel that it's a bad zone or it's not a good zone for them to be. They can be in the red zone because of something that's happening to them that they are not able to regulate the emotions. Our goal is to teach, identify what zone they are, and give them strategies to manage that zone. The next one that we do here is called the social thinking or the flexible thinking. This again is a super flex curriculum. It uses lots of stories and activities that we do to teach children of what we call is perspective taking. So it addresses the cognitive flexibility. So when a child has a fixed mindset, we call them a rock brain. Mind is just like a rock. It's not flexible enough to understand, process information. So this curriculum helps the children to think about the flexibility that they can have, taking and accepting different perspectives, especially when the peers are sharing information. They have choices to do their work. They have options to do in the classroom. So this helps to give them that flexibility and do things that we are supposed to be doing in the classroom. The next one is increase the perspective taking. Again, with different things that are happening with COVID-19, the children might share stories, have different perspectives. For example, they might say, oh, we're all going to die. So that's something we call it a negative talk. So using a negative frame and changing into a positive frame, using this perspective taking and helping the child to move from that negative self-talk to the positive self-talk. Make a visual and able to manipulate. A lot of kids, we use visuals, like they have schedules for daily schedules. I'm sure that you guys use it all the time, giving them visuals, knowing that what is a part of the day, what they should be doing. And even if you choose an activity to do with the child, you have different options for them. They can either write about it, they can say about it, they can choose pictures, give them a lot of flexibility for them to choose, understand what the process is and what we want to do. The other thing that I want to share with you guys this morning is the CPS model by Dr. Ross Greene. I'm not sure like how many of you have heard about Dr. Ross Greene. He's a great author of many books. So I have a small information here which lists all the different books that we use for book study with the staff members. We pick a book probably once in 6 months and we go through some of the chapters. Dr. Ross Greene has lots of novel ideas, especially when it comes to teamwork. When you work with children, it's not just you doing the work, it's a teamwork. You collaborate with the speech therapist, you collaborate with the teachers, special ed teachers, with case managers, with psychologists. So it's a teamwork. When you see kids behaving and the behaviors are not acceptable in society, we think the kids are challenging for us. Dr. Ross explains the CPS model as the kids are not challenging because of behaviors, they are lagging some skills. And if they know what those skills are, they wouldn't be challenging. So his focus is not on the behavior, is focused on teaching those skills. And his model of the CPS is a collaborative, proactive solutions. So the C stands for the teamwork. Proactive is you know information about your child. For example, you have a child, you know he or she has autism. You can predict some of the behaviors, some of the needs of the child, and you create a model that's going to help the child, not just with you and the child, but with the parents, with the psychologist, with the therapist who is in connection with the child. So the CPS model is a huge benefit for our teams. It helps us to bring partnership between adults and kids and engage kids in solving problems. Sometimes when you ask the kids what the problem is, they produce the solution too. So having those conversations and with the parents, having those conversations with the teachers, with the team, and balancing it out and trying to find the best solutions or support systems that's going to help the child is the CPS model. So we talked about secondary trauma today. We focused on the symptoms. We focused on how to manage the secondary trauma. We talked about 3 systems that helps to manage in children. The emotional regulation, the skills training, and the social thinking. I want to focus a large amount here on educators and caregivers on self-care. So a lot of times with COVID-19, it's sometimes you have to take care of yourselves. And that's what we are doing for the past 6 months in our district, helping the educators and caregivers. Are they able to produce and give that distance learning for the children? What support they need? What are the systems we have in place that's going to help the child and the educator to have that streamlined process of distance learning? And emotionally, what the caregivers need to help the child. So we talked about the children and the emotional regulations. So I'm moving on to educators and caregivers and what are the things that we need to do to help ourselves through COVID-19. So when you look at this slide here, it talks about the professional quality of life. So we are all great professionals. We do great things for ourselves. Sometimes we have to stop and think, what's happening to us because of COVID-19? Are we doing well? What are the things that we can do better? So when we do better for ourselves, definitely we can produce the best support for our children. As I was listening to Mr. Das, our chief guest, he was talking about the things that we need to do for our parents and for our children as we take care of ourselves. He was talking, he gave me a great segue for my presentation, the importance of emotional needs of the children. That's huge right now because of so much unknown and uncertainty that we have around COVID-19. As much as we focus on the children, we also have to focus on ourselves. So a professional quality of life has a big component called the compassion satisfaction. You know your caseloads, you know what you have to do in your job, you do your job, you have all the resources that you need to do your job, and you take care of yourselves. When you come home, your compassion for the COVID-19 families or for the kids who have been affected is genuine, and you're able to come home and take care of yourself and your family is compassion satisfaction. You're balancing it well, both work and family. But when you see the other side, most of us, even me, are hit by compassion fatigue. So this happens at 2 levels. We'll talk more about compassion fatigue. It's a burnout and secondary trauma. So burnout, professional burnout is very generalized. You can see the symptoms. You come home after a day's work, you have a headache, you're just exhausted. So these are most generalized symptoms that you might have, which causes professional burnout. So you go out for a walk, you're able to bounce back, you are back on the track. But secondary trauma is a little more serious than burnout. Secondary trauma is where you start experiencing symptoms because of the compassion fatigue. You're entering into depression, you're getting yourself stressed, you're very anxious, you don't know what's going on, you're trying to handle work and your personal life, and you are in a big mess, and you're not able to share this or even identify what's going on. That's secondary trauma. There is no direct trauma to you. None of your family members affected. There is no COVID-19 in your family or anything directly to you. But this is happening, the compassion fatigue and the COVID-19 experiences of others, of the world, of the media, sends you to the secondary trauma. So we're going to look in detail about compassion fatigue that's happening in professionals and what are some things that we can do to help ourselves through it. So these are the warning signs of compassion fatigue. Your emotions, your sensory responses, your cognitive responses, your distorted beliefs, your physical responses, and addiction. I'm going to talk in detail about these responses as we move on to the next slide. So when you look at the emotions, the first thing that you go through is helplessness, hopelessness, anxiety, sadness, depression, anger, and cynicism. You can either have one or two or a cluster of these emotions. You have to understand, so if you are a person, an average person who normally very anxious about situations, and because of COVID-19, because of the media or whatever's happening between the students, the families, and all this trauma being poured onto you, your anxiety level goes up. That's where you have to be aware of yourself. Not every anxious person is going to get secondary trauma. We all have different personalities, how we deal with our systems. But when you identify that something is getting elevated because of COVID-19, then you know you need to take care of yourself. So these are your emotions. The next one is sensory responses. The first one talks about hyper-vigilance. You're super vigilant of what's going on. You're always on, looking for information, trying to get a grasp of what's going on, and you're very hyper-vigilant. The opposite of sensory response is, the hyper-vigilance is inability to empathize. It's a numbing effect. So you might hear some news that's not so good, but you just don't care. You numb yourself to it. So these two are extremes. A person is either hyper-vigilant, too much sensory processing, or numbing themselves to what's happening around them. So please be aware of what's happening to you, how your senses respond to information of COVID-19. The next one is cognitive responses. The first one talks about inability to embrace complexity. So given the situation, even in today's Google Meet, there were all bits and parts of things that we need to figure out for the presentation, to mute the video, to unmute the video. So these are complex pieces that's thrown at you. So inability to be flexible, to get that complexity sorted out, and ability to function is becoming a hindrance for you. So that's your cognitive responses. You're not able to think flexibly. The next one is minimizing. Minimizing is you just give up. You don't make a big deal out of it. You hear something, you minimize the stories, or you compare it to something that's not happening. You're minimizing yourself. The next one is the distorted beliefs. It's a diminished creativity. Again, if you are a creative person, you just give up. You're not very creative. You become less flexible. You just do the standard things. You don't want to put any effort into it. And this could send you some warning signs of who you are and what's happening to you. Sense of persecution is like feeling that's no power or no control of what's happening. You give up. You feel that you're powerless. You can't do anything about COVID-19. And the next two is the guilt. You feel guilty about what's happening, something you didn't pass or something your family didn't pass, and you pass on that guilt towards you. Fear, you're very fearful of what's happening around you. The next one is the grandiosity. It's the inability, or you're not flexible enough to work as a part of a team. So these are distorted beliefs right here. So I want you guys to kind of like be aware of what's happening and how you're feeling with your emotions, and take care of yourself through these emotions. We are moving on to the physical responses, which is very visible to see: a change in appetite, difficulty in sleeping, chronic exhaustion, and physical illness. This is the most easy one to identify what's going on with you, because it's visible. You have information. If you're eating 3 meals, you skip your meals. If you like certain foods and you don't want to eat them, it's telling you information. It's giving you information. So stop and think each and everything that you do every day, if there is a change because of this trauma and it's impacting you, and how it's impacting you. The next one is addiction. This is very common, what happens to people when they're hit with secondary trauma. They either go to drugs, alcohol, sex, caffeine, or sugar addiction, adrenaline, or overwork. They constantly work without giving a break, and they get addicted to work. So these are some of the symptoms or warning signs that you might experience because of compassion fatigue. So we did listen to some of the symptoms and signs that can happen to us when you work with families and students, when you hear about trauma, what's happening in their families, when you're providing a support services. So what can you do about it? We're going to just spend some time on the components of compassion resilience. These are the things that you can do to yourself to help you through the compassion fatigue. First, I want you to understand what secondary trauma is, identify this, and helps. So you guys, you have to understand, connecting with the colleagues, there should not be any negative talk among the colleagues. That's going to drain you down. It's not going to help with self-care. So when you are connecting with colleagues, you need to figure out if it's a positive connection that's going to help you, heal you, and go through this information. The next one that I want to spend a little time is the self-care. Self-care is very important, especially your mind, your spirit, strength, and heart. Self-care is a must for all caregivers and educators. So we're going to spend our last slide on talking about self-care. So the spirit talks about living and working with alignment of core values, thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. This is your spirit. You have to align your working and living core values with your work and your living. It should match the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that you experience in your work and your personal life has to be aligned with your core values. This is very important. If what you believe in and what you value is exactly very different from the work, then there's going to be a struggle between the alignment of your living and working values. Next is the mind, the value of work and one's purpose, especially the organization skills and able to say no. So your mind is the value of your work. So if you have passion, your compassion for what you work, your purpose for doing that work, your skills to do that work. Are you have enough training? Are you able to do the work? Now we have a switch. We have to switch from in-person teaching to distance learning. Do you have the organization skills to do that work? And are you able to learn those skills? And when you're not able to do it, how you can say no or get help so you are in a sound mind of doing that work. We're also talking about strength, is the stress and resilience, care for your body, healthy habits, eating, sleeping, and exercising, which is very important. Dr. Das, our chief guest, he did a stress on yoga, eating good, and exercising for students. As much as we are concentrating for your students, we have to make sure our caregivers and educators are doing this first, because a sound support system needs for every service that you provide for the children. We're moving on to the heart, is the relationships, healthy connections, expressing and receiving emotions, and supportive collegial relationships. So this is very important. Expressing and receiving emotions. You should have someone that you can talk to about what's going on, and also receive those emotions. You have to have some co-workers that's going to help you being supportive, listening to you, sharing information, and getting through this way, the new way of learning and teaching kids through distance learning. So I have few slides, which are the web resources that I shared for today's presentation. Again, the first one that I listed here is called the Zones of Regulation. This is the emotional regulation that I talked about. If you click on the link that's used in this presentation, it takes you to the Zones of Regulation website, where you have different types of books, the lessons that you can use for the kids, right from ages 4 to the young adult. There is scales that you can use. There's visuals that you can use for the kids. The next resource that I shared is the 5-point scale. This is a very common 5-point scale that we use for all of us kids, for all of our students. It's a quick check-in when the kid comes to the classroom. It has a scale of, it's 5 points, 5 colored, and it helps us to identify where the child is emotionally, so we can help the child through the day or through providing that service. Our next web resource is the social thinking. It talks about the flexible thinking and the perspective thinking. Again, it has different storybooks that you can purchase for the child. There are different programs that you can read about. There are articles and research that you can use to teach children on flexible thinking. The next one is called the Lives in the Balance. This is the CPS model that I talked about in the session. It talks about the collaborative proactive solutions by Dr. Ross Green. The next resource is the Trauma Module 4. It talks about self-care, the things that I shared in the slide, taking care of yourself, increasing the compassion resilience, and fighting through compassion fatigue. The next resource is the Trauma Sensitive Schools. It's a national network where you have lots of information and resources for trauma, how to set up a trauma-sensitive school, and how you can use the trauma-sensitive approaches for families and students. I've also added some COVID resources that we use. pbs.org is a very commonly used resource here. It helps to give that language of the talking piece that we can use for our kids and can de-stress during the coronavirus situations. The next resource that's listed here is the self-advocacy piece. This is a great resource. If you click on the link, it takes you to visuals. Visuals as simple as taking care of the day, self-care for children, how to wash hands, why are we washing hands? It gives you plain visuals to help children understand what's going on and how they need to take care of themselves. I also added a resource on anxiety, which is a very helpful resource. Talks about the COVID-19 and how we can help children who are very anxious about the situations and what resources we can offer for children and for families. So I do have some references listed here. These are some of the research that's been shared. During these two are the resources that you can learn about trauma-sensitive schools. And I want you guys to kind of look at the last one that's called The Compassion Fatigue by Charles Figley. He has given a great research paper that talks about trauma, secondary trauma in children, different types of trauma, and what are the things that we can do to build that compassion. So that brings us to the end of our presentation. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen right here so I can get back to the chat box and look for some questions.
Thank you, Beulah. That was a wonderful presentation. Beulah?
Yes.
Yes, we could travel through your slides and we could imagine the way you would be working at your place. Thanks for the lot of resources that you have shared. It was really an impeccable presentation.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. It was a wonderful presentation, Beulah, ma'am.
Yes.
Thanks for sharing.
I think Swarna ma'am has come. Yes, Swarna. Now I hand over the session to Dr. Swarna Kumari, who will moderate the session with the questions. The resource person, Dr. Beulah Sundararajan, will interact with you also. Over to Swarna, please.
Thank you, Turin. Thank you, Beulah. That was a wonderful presentation. I now
thank you.
request the participants to just raise questions to the speaker of the day. You can post your questions in the chat box or just unmute your video and audio to just raise questions one by one. Beulah, I request you
Yes.
to just respond to the questions of the participants.
Sure.
Any questions from the audience?
So I do see a question, how compassion work at work can be handled. So as I shared, compassion fatigue is something that you need to understand what's happening to your lives, whether it's at work or in your personal lives. It's the balance that you can try to maintain. And sometimes compassion fatigue hits everyone. As we work with our children and our caseloads, there'll be a day which did not go so well for you. You might be had a lot of fatigue and exhausted. But when you bounce back the next day, you're able to fight that compassion fatigue, be ready for the work for the next day, then you're doing well. You're building that resilience in you. But if you feel that you're not able to bounce back, you're getting stressed, you're getting depressed, that's where you have to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Start having conversation with your co-workers, trying to identify what's happening to you. Is it too much workload? Is your caseload being very difficult? And then sort it out. So trying to figure out that boundary setting, goal setting, and getting the help that you need to bounce back and develop that compassion resilience.
Yes, thank you, Beulah, for your very clear and succinct response. Yes, my dear participants, you can just post your questions in the chat box too.
So I have another question that just came up.
Hi, ma'am.
Someone posted a question, how much time does emotional regulation takes the transition? So it depends on the child. What we are doing in the work is managing those emotions. There is no time limit, but it's managing those emotions. When you're using zones of regulation or any program that you use to manage those emotions for the children, it depends on the day. So one day they're able to use that strategy that you teach them. They're able to regulate the emotions. They are able to process the services that you provide. But they might have a bad day. Something went wrong at home with COVID or any other trauma, and they're not able to process the information that you provide for them. Then you make those adjustments. So the emotional regulation transition depends on the child, depends on the trauma, and depends on the day.
Yes.
So I had a question. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, ma'am. Thank you for the wonderful session. As a clinical psychologist, I do have a fair understanding of the delusion of persecution and grandiosity. So you mentioned about a sense of persecution and the idea of grandiosity in your cognitive beliefs slide, which you had shared. Could you kindly elaborate a little bit more about that? Like you spoke about grandiosity where the person was unable to work in a group because of the idea of grandiosity. I would like it if you could just help a little more with the understanding of the same. Thank you.
So the compassion fatigue has certain symptoms that a person can experience. So these are the symptoms that was listed. Sense of persecution is with COVID-19, we feel that we are powerless. This is something so uncertain, unknown. We don't have the answers yet. So we feel so powerless that we are not able to overcome this COVID-19. That sense of feeling is the sense of persecution, which the educators and the caregivers are trying to seek. Like they feel that they're powerless over this. Because every day, the new information that's being bombarded at us, we are unable to get the grasp of what's happening or what's going to happen. Grandiosity is because of the cognitive beliefs or cognitive responses that we have, we are not able to function well as a team because of our own thought process is so fixed or so big that we're not able to move on and be flexible enough to do a teamwork. Does it answer that question?
Yes, it does. The first part I understood about the persecution, about grandiosity. So, is it because the person is having a sense of inflated ego, which is why the person is not able to work in a team? Is that, have I understood it correctly?
Yes, yes. Because the feelings are so big, we're not able to move on or even think the perspective thinking of what I can do to help with the team or how to help myself in the team. They're not able to move on because of the big thoughts that they have. It can be any trauma, just not COVID. It can be COVID-related trauma or any trauma that leads to compassion fatigue.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Beulah.
Thank you, guys.
So I think it was a very entertaining session. Now just going on to the formal vote of thanks. So thank you, Beulah, for such an enlightening and entertaining presentation on the right way to understand and handle secondary trauma in children with special needs during the COVID crisis. We appreciate your effort in helping us understand this mysterious area with an introduction to understanding what trauma is, what are the symptoms, and also the effective management strategies we can inculcate as rehab professionals. Thank you for your excellent presentation and your clarified involvement in meeting to the questions of our participants. I also take this opportunity to express my sincere thanks to all the participants for their enthusiastic interaction and involvement. Thank you all. So with this, the first invited lecture of the webinar comes to a close. Thank you once again, Beulah and the participants. I now hand over the session to Dr. Turin Martina, second invited lecture.
Thank you, Dr. Swarna, and thank you, Beulah, for the wonderful start of the International Faculty Development Program webinar. Thank you, participants. Stay tuned. We'll start the next session immediately. The resource person, yes, thank you. The resource person of today's second session is Ms. Elsie Brahmasen. The moderator is Dr. Joyce P. Manikam, Associate Professor of the PG and Research Department of Rehabilitation Science. Participants, kindly pin on the name Dr. Joyce P. Manikam. Over to Dr. Joyce. Joyce, ma'am.
மேம் அன்மியூட் பண்ணுங்க. ஜாய்ஸி மேம் அன்மியூட் பண்ணிட்டு பேசுங்க. Unmute your audio, ma'am. Yes, okay.
Yes, okay. It's my immense pleasure to introduce Mrs. Elsie Brahmasen, who will be giving a presentation on caregiving for the elderly COVID-19. She is an eminent and illustrious alumna of the PG Research Department of Rehabilitation Science, Holy Cross College, Trichy. She is the Director, Compliance Center East, Provider Approvals and Compliance Group, Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission, Sydney, New South Wales, Australia. She holds a master's degree in rehabilitation science and a master's degree in gerontology. She has a work experience of 23 years in aged care, 12 years in private sector in direct service delivery in management roles, and 11 years in federal government of Australia. She is the proud recipient of 2 prestigious national level awards: Better Practice Award for implementing therapeutic services in aged care, Public Service Medal for the service in protecting welfare of the elderly and vulnerable. We certainly laud her for all her amazing achievements and know she has many more to come. But I welcome her to share her expertise. Over to Elsie.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm just trying to bring my slide up. If somebody can help me with that. It seemed to work yesterday. And
Participants, kindly pin on the name Elsie Brahmason presentation to view the presentation as she's getting ready to present.
is someone able to get the slide up? I'm not able to, it's not coming up.
Elsie, are you doing the slide transition yourself? Yeah.
But it's not working.
Yes. Yeah, I think you are there.
Can you see? You can't see the slide.
No, but it was there and now it has left.
Oh, right. Okay, let me try again. Bear with me, people.
Click present now.
Yeah.
And then you will find you have your PPT open. So there's a window which gives you two screens. One is yourself and the other is your PPT. Click on the PPT screen and then say share.
Okay, that's not the one, is it?
No.
Yeah. For some reason, it worked yesterday.
Yeah.
Let me see.
I think you have to.
Yeah.
Click present now.
Yeah, I did.
And then you will find two screens. A box which has two screens.
Yeah, there's only one screen coming up. That's the problem.
Do you? Dharmi? Angel?
Yes, ma'am.
Juliet, would you be able to help Elsie?
You will be getting a screen when you present now. You will be getting a screen.
Is it there now?
The screen you will be getting a small window.
Yes.
Got the present, ma'am.
The presentation.
Yeah, now we have it, Elsie. Can you just start as a big screen?
Okay.
First click enable editing on top.
So I can't see the other.
Yes, it's there. Yeah.
Pardon?
Yes, ma'am. Yes. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Visible.
It is visible, Elsie, but it has to go on full screen.
All right.
Click the slideshow, ma'am.
Yeah. Is that working now?
No.
Can you see it?
No.
Okay, I can see it. Let me show. And get back. It says Elizabeth David is presenting.
Oh, Elsa should stop presenting. Yeah, she has stopped.
Okay, I'm going to try. So I can see my presentation and I'm hitting share. Is that working?
Yeah, you have to share it. Click that and share it. Yeah.
So is that working now? Can people see it?
It says presentation LC, but the screen, yeah. Now put that as a big screen.
Slideshow, ma'am. Click the slideshow.
So is that
Elsie,
working?
you can go to slideshow and start from the beginning.
Yeah,
Yes,
click
yes.
that. Click the slideshow.
Okay.
No, but you have to click the enable editing on top. There is a yellow bar behind the orange bar. Click that enable editing. Yeah,
Yes,
click that
yes,
one.
Elsie, yes.
And then you click this.
Then click the slideshow.
Yes, yes. Participants, kindly note, you can pin on the name Elsie Brahmason presentation to view the presentation.
Elsie, you'll have to start again because it has gone. The presentation has gone.
Oh.
Whatever you did, do that once again.
Just me. Sorry, everyone. It's just not working for some reason. Is that working? Is that working for everyone?
No, ma'am. No.
No, Elsie.
Okay.
Did you do it? You do the present now, and then you start clicking the PPT, then you say share.
Yeah. So I'm just going to try again. Just give me 1 second.
No worries, take your time.
Yeah.
Participants, please note, we will have Elsie's presentation once she starts, and that will be for an hour. And earlier it was a 1.5 hours lunch break, but whenever we break, we will come back at 2 o'clock for the next session. So 2 to 5, we have 3 important presentations. So do stay with us to enrich yourself post-lunch. I know it is very difficult. Even for me, it is very difficult, but we will have to bear with one another to have food for our thoughts.
Is that working?
Ma'am, it is working, ma'am. You can just press F5 button.
Yes, Elsie.
F5.
It's working.
F5?
F5 button in your keyboard.
Yeah. That's not doing anything.
Or you go to slide
Or
show.
you can go to slideshow.
Slideshow.
Yeah.
You find an
Just tell me if it's working.
hourglass. Yes.
Yeah. Is that working?
Yes,
Yeah,
Elsie.
it is working now.
Okay.
Yes, Elsie, you can start.
I will keep myself out of the video just to make sure that everyone can see the slideshow. Thank you, everyone, first of all, for giving me this opportunity. I feel very humbled and honored, and I cannot even imagine that after 25 years, I'm connecting back again with my former lecturers, professors, and colleagues and friends. Thank you, Elsa ma'am and Sheila ma'am, for very kind words. And Beulah, what an amazing job. And you were my senior. I admired you at that time, and great work now as well. So that's really fantastic. So just to give a little bit about myself, yes, I'm Elsie Brumison. I was one of rehabilitation students, and I finished in 1996. Came to Australia soon after, a couple of months after finishing in 96. So I've been here since then to now, and I've been working in aged care ever since. I did work 1 year or so in the disability sector, and I could see the similarities between the disability sector and the aged care sector. And there were a lot of younger people with disability in aged care as well. So I was naturally drawn to that. And in 1997, I joined the aged care sector. And since then, life has taken its turn. And I did do a Master of Gerontology in Australia to complement the studies that I did in terms of Master of Rehabilitation in India. So I'll try and talk slowly. I do tend to talk very fast. I'm very conscious that I'm standing between your lunch, and it's never good to stand between lunch and a person. So I'll try and talk briefly, but happy to take questions as well. So today's presentation is mainly focused, from my point of view, about caregiving for the elderly in and around the time of COVID-19. So if I can, I know some of the people have touched about what is COVID. I think it's really important for us to know coronavirus is a large family of viruses that cause respiratory infections, and it ranges from common cold to more serious diseases. And COVID-19 is a disease caused by a new form of coronavirus. And as we all know, and we've heard it so many times, that it was first reported in December 2019 in Wuhan city in China. People often don't know that there are other types of coronavirus as well, and that's the MERS and the SARS as well. And globally, at the time when I was preparing this presentation, there was about 10 million cases of COVID, and about 500,000 people, over 500,000 people have died, as reported to the World Health Organization. And a lot of the people, many have lived through life not experiencing any form of pandemic. And so for all of us, while it is a major tragedy economically and physically and emotionally, it is a time that we will live to talk about. And so it is a global event, and it has connected us now, and we do need to live through this experience. Some of the aspects of, so what I'm talking about today is all based on Australian information. So there might be some different ways of, describing things and recognizing COVID in India or in America and other countries. So forgive me, I have to base with the information that I have, which is all Australian-based information. So as we describe it here, recognizing COVID-19, one of the most vulnerable people that are affected by COVID are the elderly people. And we have seen the impact globally on people over 65. And I've also been reading and seeing about what actions have been taken in India for people over 65. My parents live in Kerala, and they're over 65, and I can see that Kerala government has particularly taken a lot of actions to protect the elderly. So the elderly people are one of the groups that are most at risk of serious infection if they are exposed to COVID-19. Some of the most common symptoms that includes fever and dry cough. And what we have seen in Australia is, through my experiences, a lot of the elderly people may not show the symptoms of fever. And the other symptoms that can include shortness of breath and fatigue, and the other symptoms are sore throat and headache and all other symptoms that are mentioned there. And I really want to continue to focus in this presentation on older people. And so older people will have increased confusion and worsening of chronic conditions of the lungs, and like asthmatic conditions and loss of appetite as well. I'll talk a bit further about how COVID, the period of COVID, not just getting COVID, but the period of COVID can have impact on people that are elderly or 65 over. I also want to give a couple of clarifications and disclaimers that, while I have a gerontology master's, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not talking about conditions and stuff from a medical perspective. So these are informations that are given to us through the medical professionals that we work with. But it's really good for you to be aware of, because you will be either working with elderly people, or you have family members or relatives or friends and family that you care for that are older. So it's really good to know some of the things. So in terms of the increased confusion that could happen due to various reasons, people often can get dehydrated because they're not drinking enough. They are isolated. They're not, managing their nutrition and hydration really well. So if people have COVID, they could experience loss of appetite, and that could cause a lot of other complications for them, loss of weight and skin integrity and stuff like that. And often we have also, this is from the Australian government, the reason they've put up this chart is that people are often confused between what is COVID-19, what are the symptoms for COVID-19, and cold and flu. People can get very confused and may not look for treatments and seek assistance. So that chart is up there for you to have a look at. And when you see it between COVID and cold and flu, there are a lot of common symptoms, and people can get easily confused. And in COVID, the only symptom that's not there is but fever and cough, sore throat, shortness of breath, fatigue, which is tiredness, aches and pains, headache, runny nose, diarrhea, can all be, symptoms of COVID-19. And it's really important if people experience any of these symptoms that they seek medical help. So in terms of infection control, I think one of the biggest things that World Health Organization and all the health authorities have been promoting is about infection control. And I can see right from Prince Charles to everyone around the world have started using Namaste instead of handshaking or giving a hug. And I think India has been leading in that regard. And a lot of the infection control comes from good hygiene. And what we have understood globally is that the incubation period for COVID-19 is 5 to 6 days, and it can range up to 14 days. So in regards to the cases that we've been managing, we've always said for isolation for 14 days for the one round of incubation period, plus another 14 days, which gives like a good coverage. So we do ask for people to self-isolate for 14 days plus another 14 days. So, people are not transmitting COVID-19. And the other ways of protecting oneself and not sharing COVID-19 to others is through personal hygiene, particularly hand hygiene, and learning the cough etiquette of coughing on your elbow. I do have a picture in the next slide to show as well. And it's quite important also to understand the PPE, which is the personal protective equipment, which is gloves and gowns and eye protection and masks and all of that. As you know, once again, I'm saying that I'm not a doctor, so I'm not saying what you should or should not do. But there is a particular way of how you put it on and off. So the donning and doffing of PPE correctly is very important. What we have seen is when people wear a mask, they think that they're protected. Wearing gloves, people feel that they are protected, but you are actually, if you're not putting it on and taking it off in the right way, you will be actually spreading the contamination than when you're not using the PPE. So say, for example, if you're wearing your gloves and you're touching everywhere, and you might feel safe because you're wearing gloves, but if you're not taking it off after touching handrails and public area, traveling in bus and everything, you're actually transmitting the issue rather than. So sometimes it's better not to wear gloves and wash your hands. So yeah, same with masks. There is World Health Organization. You need to follow their advice. But once again, doctors say unless you have COVID, the important thing is about how do you put it on and off is really, really important. There are some really good YouTube videos from World Health Organization that I encourage you to watch. So I see a lot of people wearing masks but not treating it in the proper way. If it stops you from touching your eyes and nose and that's the only reason you're wearing it, that's fine. But there is a way of putting it on and off, which is called donning and doffing. So if you are experiencing any symptoms of COVID-19 that we discussed, do not go to work and do not visit any aged care facilities or where elderly people live or people with disabilities live. And handling and disposal of clinical waste is also really important, how you manage it, and that includes all the PPE as well. And processing of reusable equipment. Often I have seen people using all the disposable items, cutlery and crockery and everything, but if you don't dispose it off properly, you'll be actually contaminating more people. So you really have to be careful about that. And environmental cleaning. Where you live and work, and every day when you turn up to your desk, if somebody else has used your keyboard or mouse or your computer or your books and stuff, you do need to wipe and clean and your seat and everything before you sit and use items, because you will be transmitting COVID-19. And laundering of linen as well. When you have been out in the public and come back home, make sure you wash your clothing items, and particularly if you've been in an area where it is COVID positive, or you've visited people in hospital or in a particular area, you really need to be careful about how you're managing your laundering your personal clothing items as well. Food handling, cleaning of utensils. I don't need to explain any further. These are very simple explanation. And environmental cleaning and disinfection in terms of the public areas. If you're in an office area or you're working somewhere, you've been to a toilet, hand washing, hand hygiene, maintaining, not spitting in common areas, and maintaining all of that is really, really important. And that's just a slide that's showing, hand washing and use of face mask, and staying at home when you're unwell, maintaining the distance. And as we all know, the distance that's been recommended is 1.5 meters. And I highly recommend that you follow that even when you're at work or when you're visiting your elderly relatives or friends and family as well. Sometimes people ignore that, and I can see large number of people turning up to weddings and events and taking elderly people and not understanding how the distance principle is really important to follow to prevent and particularly the transmission of COVID-19, and avoid touching particularly your eyes and face, and stay informed. And the information you get from the World Health Organization, this slide is particularly from the World Health Organization, really stay informed. Things change all the time, and staying informed and up to date is very important for you. And I can see I keep monitoring the number of COVID cases in India as well. And I think the numbers are increasing because people are particularly not following in some areas the proper prevention methods that are being prescribed. And I just want to talk a little bit about aged care in Australia and how it works, because that's my area of expertise. So if you see the Australian map, you can see the yellow Queensland, the pink area is New South Wales, and the green area Victoria and Tasmania at the bottom. So I am responsible for aged care in all area, the east coast of Australia, Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, Tasmania. So there are, in terms of residential aged care services, there are 2,723 residential aged care services. That's the place where people live. The older people can go and live there permanently. And I've seen some of the aged care facilities in India as well. Every time I come to India, I see the numbers are increasing. So, there are 2,700 services in Australia. And the other type of aged care that's provided in Australia is called home care services. And there are over 2,000 of those services. So under each, when I say 2,000, there are 2,000 providers that provide home care services. And home care services where aged care providers will send a staff home to provide care for the elderly. So if they need shower, if they need personal hygiene, if they need medication management, wound care, all of that can be provided at home for people. And Australian government really promotes and wants people to stay at home as long as possible before going into residential aged care services. And you can see sometimes people up to 93 and 94 living at home. My own in-laws have been living at home until they were 94 and only recently have moved into residential aged care services. And the other type of service that's available, there's 36 services that are available that's called flexible care. That's mainly targeted for very remote areas, and it's targeted at Indigenous elders, the Aboriginal people of the country. And there's one other program that's called Commonwealth Home Support Program, where some of the organizations provide basic transport services or, visitation at home and things like that. So that's a very basic type of service where shopping or transport and all of that can be done. But all the residential care, home care, and flexible care will provide very high level of care. So that's the type of aged care services that are available in Australia. And there are two types of government organizations that are responsible for monitoring and regulating the aged care services in Australia. So I can talk about a little bit about how we've been managing COVID in Australia in the aged care sector. So there are state and federal Department of Health, and there's also Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission, who I work for. They are the regulators, and nationally we regulate and manage and monitor the aged care services and make sure that they're providing really good care. If we find that they're not providing good care, and particularly in terms of COVID-19, if they're not following the principles, and if there is a particular, outbreak, we would step in and take regulatory action and make sure people's life are protected. And right now, there's about 200,000 elderly people live in residential aged care. And I should say, by God's grace, there's been only 37 deaths in residential aged care as a result of COVID. So that shows how strict the Australian government is in terms of monitoring and managing how COVID is managed for the elderly. So some of the work that the Commonwealth government does is assisting facilities to confirm if there's an outbreak, and we do have our own doctors and medical professionals that would take the testing samples and confirm it, and then immediately we'll go into an outbreak management plan and manage that site from that time onwards. And we'll monitor the severity of the illness, we'll monitor if there's any deaths, if there's any hospitalization, and if there's any physical or mental deterioration of the older people, because we have seen in a couple of centres where there has been an outbreak and there's been a number of deaths, that people had to be isolated. And as soon as you isolate older people, there's a very increased amount of loneliness for them, and we have seen a deterioration in their mental health and a deconditioning in their mental health. And we do then communicate with the relevant stakeholders, whether it is the media or the family members and all the other health authorities as well. And we do monitor the national outbreak as a whole. And some of the things that we do, we have learned as a result of managing several COVID cases, is that in the elderly people, the physical health deteriorates quite a bit. And it doesn't mean that they need to be COVID positive. Even just, the environment around the world has changed. People are not going out much. And we have seen a major deterioration physically in people. And some of the things that we have seen as people with chronic conditions like diabetes is not being managed very well because they're not going to doctors regularly because you can't get out. And so these are some of the areas that we have seen major impact on the elderly people. So if you have care or responsibilities for elderly people, I would encourage you to make sure that you're monitoring if they are diabetic, are they taking their medication on time, and if they needed help with insulin, is there a different type of medication they could take, like tablet, for the period, that they can't go to the doctors. All those things are very important. And we have seen very increased amount of, joint pain and deterioration in people's mobility. And so the reason I've mentioned arthritis there is that people are not moving around much. They're very sedentary and locked up and in their home or in a residential aged care facility. So people's mobility has been significantly affected. And we have seen a lot of issues with pressure area care and skin care. People are not, once again, hydrating and, like drinking enough water or, eating the right food. And people are trying to survive just with, what they have. So I do have some ideas in a couple of slides to talk about how we can manage all these things. And people with memory, we have seen deterioration with people that have diagnosis of dementia or depression. And it's really, really important that people, particularly the elderly people, whether they are COVID positive or not, that good nutrition and hydration is maintained. And the other thing that's really, really important is maintaining good mental health. And we have seen if people have been diagnosed with COVID positive, there's a significant deterioration in their mental health because people with, it's quite widely published that people that are elderly and have COVID positive don't survive very much. And so we have seen a marked deterioration in the mental health. And there's been a lot of heightened activities with psychologists and psychiatrists in the area of aged care, particularly in Australia, and dealing with mental health. And so any forms of discussion and concerns around the coronavirus outbreak does bring stress for people. And I do encourage people not to, if you are visiting an elderly person or if you're talking to an elderly person, not to use the words like pandemic and global impact and really scaring them. And it's really important to, encourage them to have a healthy lifestyle and give them information, but stay positive, and give them access to information, access to doctors, and maybe a church pastor or minister or good music, and all those things are more important to maintain really good mental health. For people particularly that are elderly. We've also seen a huge amount of financial stress on people, particularly if you're elderly and you don't have a large amount of saving or a regular income, that you're not working. People might end up really in a really difficult situation financially, and so that we have seen that it has resulted in them not eating well or not doing their regular medical visits and everything. So it's important to look at what are the ways that support can be provided for them. There are some organizations that provide financial support also for elderly, but I'm not sure what are the organizations that are there in India that does that. I'm sure the Rehab department will be able to find those information and share it with you. I've just given some of the tips to reduce social isolation and loneliness as well, and this applies for everyone, but particularly for elderly people. And we have seen things like this have really changed the lives of people and elderly people in Australia, and really important to encourage people to participate in everyday activities and not stop their regular exercises, or if they have a routine of prayer, or if they have a routine of their personal hygiene and everything, maintaining that is really important. And encourage people to listen to audiobooks, and if the vision is bad, where can they get audiobooks, and listening to music, and all that is important. And organizing for care packages or food delivery to be done, and you can create little rosters, and just in the area that we live, Sheila Ma'am's been to my house, she knows where I live, and we've got quite a few elderly people. We've organized a little roster to give food for people in our area. So you can do things like that to look after the elderly people in your area. And also look at volunteer services that can support people by phone call or by dropping in every now and then. There has been instances that has been reported globally where quite a number of time, because people are isolated, several elderly people have been found deceased after a long time because they've been isolated. No one has called them, no one has dropped in to check on them, but they've been found after a few days after having a fall or actually dying in their unit or at their home. So it's really important to organize those social network for people around them. These days there is Skype and phone calls and all sorts of social media available, and I'm always impressed how even elderly people can get a handle on these things. And so we shouldn't shy away from educating people and giving them those facilities as well, if that can be used. And also grandchildren and everyone, helping them to do some social engagement through online games and other things, or even just a Skype call with families will really change the isolation and loneliness for people. And this is for all of you. This is similar to what Beulah and the guest speaker were talking about earlier. There are several zones that all of us as professionals can get into, and so this is a very good question to ask yourself. What do I want to be during COVID-19? Do I want to, doesn't matter which field you're working in, whether you're in special needs for very young kids, or you're dealing with teenagers with all sorts of disabilities or challenges, or you're dealing with elderly people. Do you want to stay in the fear zone, or do you want to get into the learning zone, or do you want to get into the growth zone? Because this is an event. The COVID-19, the pandemic, is not something that any of us have experienced before, and none of us can say this is what's going to happen next. And so the knowledge is very limited. So if we stay in the fear zone, that's when we run to the shops and buy everything that we need just for ourselves, and we are complaining constantly about, you know, everything that's happening around us and being irritated and you know, not looking after ourselves. It's really important we shift from there as professionals and enter into the learning zone or even into the growth zone. So when you go into the learning zone is when you start not worrying about what you can't control. And if there's an outbreak, you know, in some other state that you're not living in, and you can't control that, you can't worry about that, and you can't complain about it, but you can start doing things to look after yourself and understand what's going on, and recognize that every single person is trying to do their best and stay positive. And it's really important then to go into the growth zone where we learn and live every day and, you know, promote positive atmosphere and maintain a happy emotional state. And that's when things can change. And I think all of us as individual people can be a champion of change. And if we can practice proper hygiene and maintain distance, stay at home when you're unwell, don't crowd you know, places. We don't need one more sari, so you don't need to turn up in a sari shop with 100 other people. You don't need to go to a wedding, you know, with 200 other people. So if we follow the right principles to prevent COVID, and if we take some of the steps that we discussed about looking after the elderly in our community, in our family, we can become champions not just at work, but also for our community and within our family members. And I've given some resources. The World Health Organization, if you know, can keep up to date with that. They are updating the information on a daily basis, not just on the number of cases, but also you know, a lot of research that's happening there. And the Head to Health website has got a lot of good mental health tips and ideas in there. And the Department of Health and the Aged Care Safety and Quality and Safety Commission has got a lot of information in there as well that people can use in your own field. Yes, I've given you some of the links that are mainly related to aged care and care for the elderly, but those principles apply to any form of care. So I might stop there and take some questions if anybody's got any questions.
Yes, Elsie. Joycey ma'am. Joycey ma'am, can you please unmute your audio?
Elsie, can you unmute your video and come on screen?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Elsie. It was an enlightening and excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Now the session is open for questions. Participants can unmute your device and raise their queries or post them in the chat box.
Elsie, that was a wonderful presentation. Yes, we also could get a lot of tips for our geriatric days. Yes, maybe 20 years from now. Yes, your personal experiential sharing has gone a long way into us, taking care of our elderly people at home as well as for us in the future to come. That was a wonderful presentation, Elsie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elsie ma'am, for the wonderful sharing of your personal experience. Really enlightening. Thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Elsie, can you just highlight any significant instance that really shook you during this COVID times during your work with the geriatric care?
So, because I work for the federal government, I can't mention the name of the event that I have been managing right now. But you all have seen in the media in Australia, there was a particular site where a lot of people have died, and I have personally been to the site and I've been managing. I think what really hit me is the impact of the deaths of the elderly people on their family and their grandchildren and many other people around them. And we don't often understand the impact that it can travel to several people, and it can take a major toll. And even just on the flip side, I have also seen how the entire community have come together to support each other and come up with ideas of looking after the elderly, cooking for them, and just doing washing for someone and all sorts of things that's not quite normal. I know in India often elderly people are looked after, they live at home, and it's not that common for an elderly person to be on their own, but it is slowly increasing, isn't it? So I think what I want to do is next time when I come to India, look at how the care for the geriatric can be made better there, and if there's opportunities for me to work with some of the department's work or other areas, I'll be very keen to do that, because there are a lot of younger people with disability that I can support, but as they get older, that support network may not be there. So that's another thing that I've also noticed during this pandemic, that younger people have all these programs that they can join, and older people have got aged care facilities and everything. There's a group in the middle that are not really, unlike a lot of programs that can be a major impact.
I have one more question. It's not a question actually. You can give your suggestion. Yeah. In Australia, geriatric care and aged care facilities is an accepted norm. But in India, we are still to catch up with that. Yeah. Leaving aged parents in aged care facilities in India is considered an insult that we incur on old people. So what is your take on this?
I really think as people get older, they deserve good care, and if they need medical care, and if they, these husband and wife have to go to work, and people are living longer, and if somebody is incontinent, they need, pressure area care because they're bedridden. A really good care can be provided only in an aged care facility where it is all set up properly with beds and everything, and 24-hour care. And last year when I was in India, I went to an aged care facility in Kerala. I was absolutely amazed at the type of care that was provided, plus the facility for families to come and stay with them, to spend days up, and so they have built it in such a way that it's family friendly. They're not actually removed from the family or dumped, so to be called. So that is the future. We have to accept that, children are going to have their own life, and if we don't accept it, and that people are going to live longer and they deserve good care, people will miss out on good care in the last years of their life. So I'm actually an advocate for going into aged care if that's what they need.
Thanks, Elsie. Thanks so much. Joycey, there's another question by Shameen. Can you read that to her?
Yes. How did you close the gap between the elderly? Shamim Banu, question from Shamim Banu. How did you close the gap between the elderly and technology to engage them in distance rehabilitation program?
Yeah, so the way Australian government does is that a number of aged care providers funded to give, the tablets and all the types of, what do you call it, iPads to the elderly people that live at home, and that there are systems that can measure their pressure and diabetes and everything. So they're not isolated. All those technologies presented at home for them, and they can just pick up the iPad and talk to the carer that's assigned to them to say how they're feeling on that day and what care they need, and their temperature, everything can be measured very easily. And also there are a lot of the Dementia Australia Association has got set up a lot of programs like games and lots of programs to maintain people's memory, and I can send some of the links as well for that. But I'm not sure, that includes a cost, isn't it? So sometimes if people don't have access to systems and technology, it can be hard to connect technology and elderly people, but it is doable if it's given by some organization.
Thank you, Elsie. There's one more question from Rani, Dr. Rani. Excellent presentation. Okay. Due to COVID, thanatophobia is increasing among elders. Any suggestions to help them? This is in the chat box. Due to COVID, thanatophobia is increasing among elders. Any suggestions to help them?
What type of phobia is that? I'm showing my ignorance here. Is that about?
It's called as thanatophobia. THANATO.
Fear of death.
Oh, fear of death. Okay, yeah. Oh, that's what I was talking about, and that is absolutely one of the biggest things that we have seen, and particularly with the people that I have been working on who've been identified as COVID positive. They were even palliating because they gave up on life and they said, that's it, I'm COVID positive, or I'm going to be COVID positive, and they stopped eating, they didn't want to take medication. And so we organized for the people that were COVID positive, window visits for families to come and visit them at the window, and then gave them Skype conversations, and increased the nutrition for them, and showed them how people can recover, and a lot of positive things. And people, we have this habit of talking about everything in a negative way, and we really focused on shifting the thinking, and we work staff about talking positive. So those are the things that changed, and people that were supposed to be palliating on morphine, once they were diagnosed as negative, or after they've had a couple of sessions with a psychologist or a social worker, they're no longer palliating. They have been up and walking. Their skin condition has got better. So I think it's in the way we approach things, and also we can put some of these supports around them. And, some of the small, token kindness that you can show by small, photos of grandchildren in their house, nice music, and because I have a therapeutic background, that's what I did when I was in rehabilitation studies. I really focused in the therapeutic side and positive side, and it really, really does help. And it not only helped them, it helped me as well. There was a period that I was feeling down looking at all these things that was happening around. So I think, like Beulah was saying as well, you can get compassion fatigue as well. So it's not just for them, the fear of death. It could be for us as well, the negative impact on us.
Thank you, Elsie.
One more question, Joyce, ma'am.
Yes, there are two more questions.
Yes, ma'am.
How I treat chromophobia in child having 3 years, child aged 3 years. How to treat chromophobia? That's one question. And can you suggest how to manage since they have no visitors, because of which they are not happy, the elderly?
The first one
Sorry,
is
the audio is not very clear. Are we talking about fear of colors?
Yeah, it's fear of colors.
Colors.
Okay, yeah. So I think in the introduction they were talking about one of the awards I won was about the Better Practice Award, and that was about color therapy. And I'm happy to share my work. I did that with Sheila Ma'am, who can share with you all later. So it was really about using color as therapy, even when, particularly when people have fear of the color. It's a very big subject, and I don't know if we can launch into that right now. And, so I can share my work in that area with you. So I don't know if I can answer it just like that. It's a therapy in itself, and it's a lecture in itself for an hour.
Elsie? Yes, can we have one more question, Elsie?
Yeah, sure.
So from the chat box, I'm working with elderly. Can you suggest how to manage since they have no visitors because of which they are not happy?
Yes. Yeah, so that's what we were talking about, loneliness and isolation that leads to all sorts of physical and mental deconditioning. And if you know that you have an elderly person that's lonely and unhappy, you don't need to be related to them to organize for, regular phone calls to be made to them, because you might yourself may not be able to go out. So there are small things that you can do, like I was saying about, creating a roster between your friends. Every Monday someone drops, maybe a couple of vade and a cup of tea for someone, and, a few small things. It doesn't need to be anything big to bridge the gap of loneliness. Even praying with someone on the phone, helping them to play the music that they enjoy, or dropping in to do the laundry for them, or hang the clothes for them, put the pictures of grandchildren on the wall for them. So small things that can, the world from outside to inside, the things you can do to create a sense of life and sense of positivity and prevent loneliness and isolation for people.
Thank you, Elsie. I think that will be the
Can I
last
also
question.
say, I've also really, what I've noticed is with COVID, with people working from home or people not going out, often people are just going to bed in the night dress and waking up and staying in the night dress and just living the entire life in the night dress. And, I really encourage all of you as professionals as well, get up in the morning, treat it like a normal day that you would go to work or you would do your day. And I have been personally working from home for the last 3 months. Yes, I do travel to different sites that we're managing COVID for. But I've made it a point that every day I get up, I get dressed like I normally do, and maintaining a routine is really important, not just for you and your family. And I've also seen, some of the families, children are not going to school, and that means they are up till 1 o'clock in the morning watching videos and TVs and playing games and not having a proper routine and proper rest. And so it's really, really important to maintain a sense of normality. And so you look after yourself well, eat well, drink plenty of water, dress well every day, and be positive. And that's what's going to help us to the next stage during this period.
Thank you, Elsie. I think due to time constraint, can we wind up the session? Turin?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Joycey ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
We have had more than 4 or 5 questions. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Over to you, Joycey ma'am, for the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Turin.
Yes.
Thank you, Elsie, for your impressive and informative presentation. We appreciate your valuable contributions for the elderly and vulnerable in Australia. We enjoyed having you. Thank you for being part of our conference. I thank all the participants for their patient listening. With this, the second invited lecture comes to a close. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
From Sheila ma'am to you. Many times we wanted you to be personally present with us for our conferences. In a way, thanks to COVID for making this platform possible. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Dear participants, am I audible, sister?
Yes, ma'am. You're audible.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
Dear
Shurin.
participants?
Yes, Shurin.
Yes, ma'am. It was a wonderful session this morning. It was a great blessing from God that all of us are connected. Though miles apart, we are all together in this platform. Have a good lunch and we meet back by 1:50. Yes, there's a photo session at 2 p.m. So kindly get connected at 1:50 Indian Standard Time for the abroad friends. We will be ready for the photo session at 2 p.m.
The photo
Have a nice
session
lunch.
is for the CRE participants, student.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Presenter wanted me to inform.
Yes.
The 200 CRE participants get connected by 1:50 today afternoon so that we can have our photo session at 2 p.m.
Ma'am, with a formal dress, better.
Yes. Yes.
Some are with a dress.
Yes.
Please tell
Please
them
be
that.
presentable in your formal dress code.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Thank you.
We'll join after lunch. Thank
Yes,
you, one
thank
and
you.
all.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thanks, Sister Lutz. Thank you so much. We meet at 2. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
திருப்பிக்கலாமா அப்போ சாப்பிட்டு வரணும் 2:45 வரணும் திரும்ப கரெக்டாக.
Thank you, ma'am.